Chapter 50-70. Xiaohua opened his mouth and spat out a cluster of Buddha fire, which fell on top of the human-shaped shadow. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes as he looked at the illusory image above the gold core. He was clear in his heart that this illusory image was the will left behind by the owner of the gold core. When his Buddha fire fell, it would certainly be like burning the Buddhist sect's Saraira. It would exterminate many of the will and karma, which would be of great benefit to Li Zongbao in condensing a new gold core. But at the same time, if Li Zongbao did not go through the process of subduing the remnant will of the golden core, it would certainly leave behind a great hidden danger in his future cultivation. Xiaohua hesitated for a moment. The ring-shaped Buddha fire did not fall, and the golden core's shadow urged the golden core to resist the suction force of the whirlpool. Although the shadow urged the golden core instinctively, the resistance was obvious. The golden core was like a boulder in the wind, standing upright in the air without moving. Xiaohua waited for an hour. The suction force was still the same, like a gale. The golden core was still the golden core, and the shadow did not even dim a bit. Thus, Xiaohua simply sat cross-legged in the distance. He opened his mouth and spat out Buddha fire, helping Li Zongbao refine the immortal slaughtering whip. After a full 10 days, the golden core's shadow began to thin, and strands of light fell into the whirlpool. The rock-solid golden core began to show signs of loosening. After another 10 days, the shadow was pulled into a shape of cotton. Following the distortion of the shadow, the outer layer of the golden core was also pulled, and the golden core began to move toward the whirlpool. However, this movement was quite slow. In 2 hours, it would only move a few inches. Xiaohua was not in a hurry. This was the second difficulty of fusing with the golden core. With Li Zongbao's current cultivation, fusing with the 8 revolutions golden core was tantamount to an ant trying to shake a tree. He could only chew this hard bone bit by bit. After a full month, Li Zongbao finally pulled the massive golden core into the whirlpool. At this time, the golden core was no longer in the shape of a golden core, but more like a drop of water. The oval-shaped golden core fell outside the whirlpool, and the other golden cores had already turned into liquid pills that were pulled into the whirlpool. Moreover, under the suction force of the whirlpool, not only were these liquid pills stretched out intermittently, but they were also torn into small and large particles. As the vortex rotated, fine lines appeared on the surface of the golden core. The runes on the golden core were torn apart and the ripples were sucked into the vortex. Good. Seeing this, Xiaohua couldn't help but secretly praise in his heart, Li Zongbao really lives up to his reputation. Fusing with a different kind of golden core, especially a golden core 8 revolution stage that is much higher than his, is the most taboo. Li Zongbao is steady, one step at a time. This is exactly the mentality of a secret art. These few hundred years of training are really very important to him. Although Xiaohua knew that the second hurdle had been passed, Li Zongbao still spent more than 20 days fusing the golden core into his lower dantian. Seeing the last wisp of golden thread fall into the whirlpool in midair, the whirlpool began to emit a low thunderous sound and gradually shrink. Xiaohua didn't dare to be distracted by the refining of the spirit tool and hurriedly put away the immortal killing whip. His figure flashed and landed beside Li Zongbao. He opened his mouth and spat out a few mouthfuls of Buddhist fire. The ring-shaped Buddhist fire from before was several times bigger, and it flew above Li Zongbao's head with a buzzing sound. Xiaohua's face was extremely dignified. He looked at Li Zongbao without blinking, waiting for the appearance of the last hurdle. Woo-woo! A burst of ghostly cries and howls came from Li Zongbao's void. Then, a shadow rushed out from the top of his head. In an instant, illusions mixed with inexplicable light and shadow began to flash around Li Zongbao's body. Li Zongbao's originally tightly closed eyes suddenly opened. Looking at these lights and shadows, he couldn't help but reveal a variety of expressions. His pitch-black eyes were also suffused with different kinds of brilliance. Immediately, strands of demonic shadows rushed out from the void, threw themselves into the light and shadows, and fell into Li Zongbao's body. Dazzling light was like fireworks, flashing in all directions. Seeing that the illusions were increasing and the demonic shadows were beginning to run rampant, Xiaohua's face became anxious. Needless to say, This was the heart demon formed by Li Zongbao's golden core. This heart demon was not only Li Zongbao's, but also the golden core's. It was several times stronger than an ordinary cultivator's. With Xiaohua's current ability, he could naturally kill this heart demon. However, relying on external forces to kill the heart demon couldn't eliminate the root of the problem, and Li Zongbao's fusion with the golden core couldn't reach perfection. Therefore, unless there was no other choice, Xiaohua absolutely wouldn't act. Wuxia. Just when Xiaohua was nervous, Li Zongbao suddenly muttered. Thousands of illusions simultaneously turned into Kai Wuxia's appearance when she was alive. Then, Li Zongbao indifferently closed his eyes, no longer being confused by the heart demon's illusions. Phew! Xiaohua let out a long sigh of relief and secretly said, "It seems that this Xiao was right. Li Zongbao's heart is worried about reviving Kai Wuxia. His mind is firm, and the heart demon can't invade. It's very important for him to fuse with the golden core." After passing the demonic tribulation, Li Zongbao's fusion with the golden core would be smooth sailing. Xiaohua didn't pay any more attention to him. He only stayed a few dozen li away from Li Zongbao, and finally refined the Kill Immortal whip. It was another dusk. The dim yellow sunlight with remnants of red shone on Li Zongbao's body. All the previous lights and shadows had already been withdrawn into his body. The complicated fluctuations also began to gradually become orderly, and finally merged into one fluctuation. Shua! An inexplicable golden light bloomed from Li Zongbao's body, like a blooming epiphyllum, flashed and disappeared, falling into the void. Li Zongbao slowly opened his eyes. His gaze fell on the back of Xiaohua, who was standing not far away with his hands in his sleeves, as if he was looking at the sunset. A complicated expression appeared in his eyes. Previously, he might not know what Xiaohua's cultivation realm was, and even now, he still didn't know. However, from the boundless magical power in his body and the golden core that was like a mountain peak and an ocean, Li Zongbao could already roughly estimate Xiaohua's strength. Junior. Brother Xiao. Li Zongbao hesitated for a moment before opening his mouth again. However, he only said one sentence and didn't know how to continue. Should he thank him? Not to mention a few words of thanks, even if he said 1,000 words, it wouldn't be comparable to Xiaohua's help to him, right? But if he didn't thank him, how could he express the gratitude in his heart? Senior brother Li. Xiaohua didn't turn his head and only said, "Come and look at this sunset. This kind of sunset is so beautiful, it always gives me the feeling of, the sunset is infinitely beautiful, just like dusk. It makes me feel that time is rushing. No matter how strong you are, you can't keep the beauty of this world." Alas, yes. Li Zongbao rarely raised his eyes to appreciate the sunset. He looked at the afterglow of the setting sun and sighed with emotion. "I haven't seen such a beautiful scenery for hundreds of years. Every time I see this sunset, I only feel that time is like lightning. I didn't do anything at all in this time." Nonsense. Xiaohua suddenly changed the topic. "You don't have to appreciate it yourself, because it's boring for you to look at it alone." Li Zongbao was stunned, not understanding why Xiaohua said this. Xiaohua turned his head, looked at Li Zongbao and said with a smile, "Senior brother Li, although you're still in the second stage of Jindan and your strength hasn't changed much, from now on, your cultivation won't have any bumps. Your cultivation speed will also be several times faster than ordinary cultivators. You have plenty of time to appreciate such beautiful scenery. Of course, you're too lonely by yourself, so you might as well find a beauty to accompany you." Saying this, Xiaohua waved his hand and threw the refined Kill Immortal whip to Li Zongbao. Li Zongbao took the Kill Immortal whip, activated his magical power and put it away. Then he looked at Xiaohua indifferently and said, "Don't talk nonsense, there's nothing between me and Guyu." Hee hee. Xiaohua shrugged and said, "Little brother didn't say anything about Guyu? Since little brother mentioned it, you mentioned Guyu, presumably in your heart, you also?" Unfortunately, when he saw Li Zongbao's unhappy expression, Xiaohua didn't dare to say more. He stopped and said, "You have Kai Wuxia's corpse with you, right?" "Of course." Li Zongbao's somewhat excited mood immediately calmed down, and a faint sadness involuntarily appeared in his eyes. He said, "I can't leave her alone outside." Xiaohua nodded and said, "Take it out and let me see." But although Li Zongbao was surprised that Xiaohua suddenly mentioned Wuxia, he still took out the crystal coffin from his storage bag. The crystal coffin floated in midair, and Wuxia was quietly lying inside. Her eyebrows were slightly knitted, and it was so lifelike. Her expression was somewhat similar to Fairy Hongxia's, causing Xiaohua to involuntarily think of Fairy Hongxia. Although Xiaohua had already returned to the Xiaoyu continent, he seemed to have suddenly lost his courage and didn't dare to see Fairy Hongxia. The setting sun just happened to sprinkle a ray of afterglow on the crystal coffin, and that blood-red light and shadow passed through the crystal and landed on Wuxia's face. It was like a layer of red, causing Li Zongbao to be somewhat infatuated. "Senior brother Li." Xiaohua withdrew his gaze and looked at Li Zongbao's appearance and said with a bitter smile, "Little brother really doesn't understand. You don't need to understand. You have your love, and I also have my longing." Without waiting for Xiaohua to finish speaking, Li Zongbao's eyes didn't even move as he said, "Every time those longings are born, I will be satisfied for the rest of my life." AI. Infatuated Li Zongbao. Xiaohua lamented, "This Xiao can't compare to you. In this world, I'm afraid there are not many people who can compare to you. This is what I owe Wuxia, and it has nothing to do with being infatuated," Li Zongbao said indifferently. Xiaohua smiled and said, "Since that's the case, you have already repaid what you owe Wuxia. For the rest of your life, it's time for her to repay you." "I hope so," Li Zongbao replied casually, but when he said this, he was suddenly startled, as if he had a premonition. He suddenly raised his head and looked at Xiaohua, only to be met with Xiaohua's evil smile. Li Zongbao seemed to have understood something and stuttered, Junior brother Xiao, what did you say?" P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe, give a monthly vote, a recommendation vote, a collection, a tip, and thank all forms of support. Chapter 5071. Xiaohua said word by word, "I said, from today onwards, it's time for Wuxia to return your company. She has to accompany you to watch such a beautiful sunset every day." Li Zongbao's body trembled, as if his breath was sucked out. He couldn't even speak. "Don't be agitated, senior brother Li." Xiaohua reached out and patted Li Zongbao's shoulder, smiling, "Don't blame me for reviving Wuxia only now. I was afraid that reviving Wuxia first would be detrimental to your fusion with the golden core." "Damn it!" Li Zongbao cursed. "Are you trying to deceive me? Or did I hear wrongly?" Xiaohua waved his hand. Li Zongbao's body was immediately pushed 100 li away, and his body was also imprisoned. He couldn't even move. Xiaohua glanced at the confused Li Zongbao, smiled slightly, and waved his left hand, opening the crystal coffin. Xiaohua patted his forehead, and the soul bridge flew out from within. The green seal text fell on it, and a tricolored rainbow bridge fell between Wuxia's eyebrows. By the time he finished reading, Xiaohua already knew that Wuxia's situation was different from Ziye's. That day in the Kai family, Xiaohua had already unintentionally activated the Permitha realm, pulling out Wuxia's soul from the blood sea and sending it into the mysterious dark clouds. However, without the activation of the power of life, the soul that passed through the blood sea of the netherworld could not be awakened. Now, he only needed to use the brush to send the life force into the mysterious dark clouds, and then use the innate chi of a Confucian cultivator to push the already chaotic and solidified mysterious dark clouds back into order. Although it was so simple, not to mention the Dawn Rain continent, even in the entire Lin continent, even in the entire 4 great continents, who would be able to complete the finishing touch, who would have the true chi of a living person. Xiaohua had already revived Ziyi, and saw Wuxia's situation through the soul bridge. His heart was already set. He raised his head again, looked at the inexplicably anxious Li Zongbao, and nodded, indicating Li Zongbao to be at ease. With a wave of his hand, the brush appeared in his hand, along with the activation of soul power, green seal text, and life force. The brush's tip revealed a jade, and slowly entered the soul bridge. It was no different from the resurrection of midnight earlier. In an instant, the entire world fell silent. With a soft thud, the the speck of jade fell into Wuxia's mysterious dark clouds. Then, the sound of a sprout breaking out of the ground rang out from nowhere. It might have been the sky, the earth, the space between her brows, the brush, or even the hope that Li Zongbao had been waiting for hundreds of years. Following this sound, swoosh, thousands of lights and shadows gushed out from Xiaohua's body, rushing between heaven and earth, and a hurricane suddenly appeared in the sky. Rumble. At the same time, in the depths of the earth, a rumbling sound was also produced, and the earth trembled. Ka-ka-ka. Several lightning bolts that were as thick as horned dragons also struck out from the void, as if they were some kind of punishment, flickering near Xiaohua. In an instant, everything within 10 li of him showed signs of being destroyed. Although Li Zongbao was standing 100 li away, and wasn't affected by this lightning, under the remnant power of the lightning, that restriction was actually also destroyed by this heaven and earth anomaly. It hurt so much. Following Xiaohua blowing his true qi into the mysterious dark clouds, Wuxia's voice that was filled with pain suddenly sounded, and her originally slightly furrowed brows immediately wrinkled. Wuxia. Li Zongbao was stupefied. He didn't dare to believe his own ears. After all, Wuxia's voice was so soft. He wanted to urge his body, wanted to charge into the several li of thunder-forbidden area, but that lightning as well as the power of heaven and earth was so strong that even if he desperately urged his transcendence energy, he still wouldn't be able to charge half a li. Moreover, it was also after he was unable to charge into the thunder-forbidden area that Li Zongbao suddenly felt as if his bones had been pulled out, his entire body went limp in midair, and 2 indescribable streams of hot tears flowed down his cheeks. He wanted to urge his true qi, but even if he had strength, he couldn't use it. Now, he was able to stand in midair, and didn't fall into the cliff, purely because of the air waves set off by the exploding thunder nearby that supported him. Persevering for several hundred years was actually realized in this instant. That tenacity of persevering in foundation establishment collapsed in this instant. Even if it was a cultivator with a stable Tao heart, it was still hard to avoid giving birth to the childish state of a mortal. Seeing that Li Zongbao was about to fall into the mountain stream, hee. Xiaohua's laughter was heard, and a large hand of thunder appeared, grabbing Li Zongbao out of thin air. But Li Zongbao still sat limp beside the crystal coffin, unable to stand up for a moment. Wuxia cried out in pain, and immediately after, under her tightly closed eyelids, her eyeballs faintly moved, and then her eyelashes trembled, and she unexpectedly opened her eyes. Right now, dusk was approaching, and the night was gradually approaching. In the distance, the last touch of dusk was reflected on Xiaohua's body, which was somewhat similar to the magma that day. As soon as Wuxia opened her eyes, she saw Xiaohua's unchanged appearance, and a trace of panic unconsciously flashed through her eyes. She opened her mouth and said, "Fellow Taoists, see a joke." Only now did I realize that all kinds of cultivation, all kinds of divine abilities, can't compare to those dozens of days of happiness when I was by fellow Taoist Zongbao's side. I have a small silk pouch in my storage pouch. If fellow Taoist Xiao has the opportunity, please bring it to Zongbao on behalf of I think he will understand my heart. As for what Zongbao thinks, I don't care. If he doesn't accept it, fellow Taoist can just burn it. If fellow Taoist is afraid of trouble, also burn it. Just pretend I didn't say anything. Also, Wuxia finished speaking in one breath. She looked at the gloomy sky again and said, "Liu Yang's Kai family is where I was born. If fellow Taoist divine abilities reach great success in the future, I hope you can take care of me." Wuxia's words were almost exactly the same as what she said several hundred years ago before she died. When Xiaohua heard this, his originally prepared heart immediately softened. His tears couldn't help but flow down. He finally understood why Li Zongbao couldn't even stand steadily. Memories and feelings wouldn't fade with the passage of time. Instead, they would be engraved in the heart for a long time. "Fellow Taoist, don't worry," Xiaohua said with a smile. "What you said, I will definitely do. If I do, please come out from the 9 underworlds and settle accounts with me." "Okay, Then I'm relieved. Kai Wuxia's time still stopped in the magma of the flame forest swamp. When she saw Xiaohua nod in agreement, she closed her eyes again and quietly waited for death. Kai Wuxia's words had already been relayed to Li Zongbao by Xiaohua. However, when he heard it with his own ears today, Li Zongbao's gradually calming heart was once again torn apart. He couldn't help but wail loudly like a young man trapped by love. Zongbao? Kai Wuxia was extremely familiar with Li Zongbao's voice. When she heard the sound of crying, she immediately recognized it. However, she didn't open her eyes. Instead, she called out in a low voice, "I knew you would definitely come. Just like in my dreams, I was afraid you wouldn't marry me. I was afraid you would make me your concubine. However, I was even more afraid that I wouldn't be able to see you. Now it's fine. I will be with you forever." When Xiaohua saw Li Zongbao struggle a few times, he hurriedly reached out and helped Li Zongbao up. Li Zongbao leaned on the crystal coffin. He took out Kai Wuxia's silk bag with trembling hands and raised it in front of Kai Wuxia. "Don't worry, Wuxia, I will marry you right now. You are the only true love of my life. From now on, I will never let you leave me even half a step." "Okay." Kai Wuxia still didn't open her eyes. Only the corner of her mouth revealed a sweet smile. At this moment, that satisfied smile was 10,000 times more beautiful than any beauty in the world. However, when the hand that Kai Wuxia had placed in front of her chest was held by a large, trembling hand, the familiar warmth immediately woke her up. Kai Wuxia could not help but open her eyes, only to see Li Zongbao's tear-filled face. "Zongbao? Why are you here?" Kai Wuxia was shocked. Then, from the corner of her eyes, she also saw Xiaohua's face that was biting his lips to hold back his tears. She immediately hurriedly shouted, "Quick, quickly save fellow Xiao. I can't make it. In the next life." "There's no need for the next life. Just in this life." Li Zongbao waited for hundreds of years. Finally, he saw Kai Wuxia's eyes again. He couldn't help it again. Just as he said that sentence, he immediately buried his head in Kai Wuxia's chest and cried like a child. Seeing this, Xiaohua also tidied up his chaotic mood. He brought the crystal coffin and Li Zongbao to a mountain peak, then quietly turned into the wind and left. The relationship between Li Zongbao and Kai Wuxia was comparable to a lifetime ago. The two of them probably had countless things to talk about. Xiaohua didn't need to delay their happiness again. Deep into the night, the moon also quietly peeked out. Above the quiet starry sky, the stars became more and more resplendent, sprinkling the moonlight and the power of the stars on this incomparable couple. Xiaohua naturally wouldn't release his spiritual sense to check. He only quietly stood in the distant night sky. No cultivator in the Xiaoyu continent could see his figure and expression. "Fellow Taoist, you miss Fairy Hong Xia, right?" Taoist, which was obviously not in this list. He asked in a low voice. Xiaohua looked in the direction of the Huanhua sect and nodded. "That's right. I miss Fairy Hong Xia. I haven't seen her for tens of thousands of years. If you miss her, we'll go now." Taoist, which already had the nature of a witch and naturally understood Xiaohua's thoughts. He smiled. "With Kai Wuxia, even if there's a spatial fault in the Xiaoyu continent, we won't spend too much time." Sigh. Xiaohua sighed and turned to look at the place where the witness of the truth was. He smiled bitterly. "I originally didn't dare to see Fairy Hong Xia. Now that Kai Wuxia has come back to life, senior martial brother Li didn't even look at Guyu for Kai Wuxia. Compared to him, it's like heaven and earth. How can I dare to bring them over? Then we'll just wait like this?" Taoist, which probed. "The wait is extremely long. Who knows when it'll end?" P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5072. There's no other way. Xiaohua said helplessly. "Unless I can't, I'm still afraid of meeting her." Fellow Taoist, you're avoiding her. Taoist, which smiled bitterly. "This isn't a solution to the problem." "Then what can I do?" Xiaohua shrugged. "Originally, there was Xue Xue, but Fairy Hong Xia was unhappy. Xue Xue is gone. On the hidden Immortal continent, there's another Princess Xixia. I still don't know how to explain this to Fairy Hongxia. Now, there's another Ziming. Back in the Million Meng Mountains, Fairy Hongxia had already reminded me of this. I've always thought that Ziming and I are bosom buddies, and there's no romantic relationship between us. But fate makes fools of us. Now, the bosom buddies that I thought were bosom buddies have met with a setback. Even though I had no other choice, but I can't explain this to Fairy Hongxia. At this point, Xiaohua retracted his gaze from Li Zongbao, touched his nose and said, I think I'm already very clean. I pay attention to my image and don't flirt with other women. But the road of life is long, and there's bound to be some women who will provoke me. Why can't I be like senior brother Li, and only stay with Fairy Hongxia? Taoist Witch smiled. Everyone is different. Fellow Taoist, isn't that what you said? If you were like that, you would be Li Zongbao and not Xiaohua. I understand. Xiaohua shook his head. What I mean is, why can't I be as faithful as Li Zongbao? What's the use of being faithful? Taoist Witch shrugged and smiled. Can being faithful save the world? Can being faithful revive Zai? Can being faithful revive Wuxia? Can being faithful protect the world and make everyone happy? Ah! Xiaohua suddenly laughed. Taoist Witch's words were his own thoughts. He stretched out his left hand, looked at the 5 different fingers, and smiled. Fellow Taoist, you're right. I have 5 fingers on my left hand. Although they're not the same length, they each have their own uses. If they're of the same length, it'll be troublesome. Therefore, although this Xiao is not as faithful as Li Zongbao, this Xiao has his own strengths. This Xiao does not need to compare his weaknesses with Li Zongbao's strengths. Besides, being devoted doesn't mean you have any advantages or disadvantages. Don't forget that in your left hand, you still have a magic saber. That's an existence even more powerful than the 5 fingers. Taoist sorcerer smiled and reminded Xiaohua. Xiaohua nodded. Fellow Taoist, you're right. Even if I'm not good, if I can save the billions of cultivators in the 3 continents from the end of the world, then I won't be a heartless person in vain. Hee, fellow Taoist, you're just finding excuses for yourself. Taoist Witch smiled, but before he could finish speaking, Taoist Witch and Xiaohua looked up at the same time. Xiaohua smiled and said, Taoist Thunder, you're finally back. In just a moment, the void was torn apart and perfected thunderbolt flew out. Xiaohua and Taoist Witch went up to greet him and cupped their hands. Thank you, fellow Taoist. How did it go? Tisk. Perfected Thunderbolt curled his lips and took out the Kunlun mirror. He handed it to Xiaohua and said, Don't mention it. I didn't get the metal and wood magnetism, but I brought someone back instead. Xiaohua was stunned. He took the Kunlun mirror and asked curiously, What's going on? Did something happen to Mingxi? Fellow Taoist, you're thinking too much. Perfected Thunderbolt smiled and said, Naturally, nothing happened to Mingxi. The metal and wood magnetism is also there. However, fellow Taoist, you've forgotten that the metal and wood magnetism is the ultimate power of the 5 elements. Although our Kunlun mirror is an ancient magic artifact, it's now in the mortal world. The array inside is also the law of heaven and earth of the Dawn Rain continent. It can't surpass the 5 elements. How can the space contain the metal and wood magnetism? Therefore, this humble Taoist has made a wasted trip. Hearing that the metal and wood magnetism was fine, Xiaohua's heart was at ease. He smiled and said, That's fine. It's all my negligence that made fellow Taoist come here. However, who did fellow Taoist bring back? A silly, delusional cultivator who has designs on the metal and wood magnetism. Perfected Thunderbolt said and looked at Li Zongbao's side. He actually lowered his voice and said, Wuxia is alive? She met Li Zongbao? What are they talking about? Xiaohua saw Perfected Thunderbolt's expression and his heart moved. He asked, What does what they say have to do with you? Hee. Perfected Thunderbolt scratched his head and said embarrassedly, I also want to hear it. When I see Qingqing, I'll tell her. Ah. Xiaohua laughed and said, You don't need to think too much about the real words of love. Just say it from your heart. And Qingqing definitely won't care about what you say. As long as you say it, she'll like to hear it. If you say too much, she'll be suspicious of the origin of your words. I'll go listen. Perfected Thunderbolt didn't have so many scruples. He turned invisible and flew out. This guy. Taoist sorcerer shook his head helplessly. Don't tell others that I know you if they catch you. Xiaohua laughed in his heart and activated the Kunlun mirror. He saw a thin old man with white hair wearing a green Taoist robe standing in the air with an inexplicable surprise on his face. Wasn't this the cultivator Emo Qingyuan that Xiaohua met in the netherworld? Xiaohua! Emo Qingyuan saw Xiaohua and immediately exclaimed, You? Why are you here? When did you come? However, before Xiaohua could answer, Emo Qingyuan looked around and shouted again, No, this isn't the netherworld. This seems to be the Huan country. Why am I here? While speaking, Emo Qingyuan opened his mouth and the magic tool, the wooden dragon chopper, flew out again. However, this time, the power of the wooden dragon chopper was several times stronger than before. Xiaohua looked at Emo Qingyuan's late-stage gold core cultivation and understood his intention of going to the netherworld. He smiled and raised his hand. The brilliance on the wooden dragon chopper faded and it fell into Emo Qingyuan's hand like a dead wood. You're actually pregnant? When Emo Qingyuan saw this, he couldn't help but be shocked. Because he saw that Xiaohua's appearance didn't change, he didn't release his divine sense. When he saw that his natal magic treasure was so easily knocked down by Xiaohua, he couldn't help but exclaim. When he used the spell to check Xiaohua's cultivation, sure enough, he couldn't see Xiaohua's cultivation at all. Xiaohua didn't point it out and said with a smile, I was one step ahead. How have you been these years, fellow Taoist Emo? Junior greets Senior Xiao. Emo Qingyuan was surprised and didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly tidied up his Taoist robe and bowed respectfully. Junior troubled Senior before, please forgive me. Hee. Xiaohua helped Emo Qingyuan up and said with a smile, It's been hundreds of years. There's no need to mention it. Yes. Emo Qingyuan stood up and looked at Xiaohua's unchanged appearance in the night. He sighed and said, In the blink of an eye, 700 years have passed. The Qi refinement cultivator from back then has already become a grandmaster, but this junior is still lingering in the late-stage gold core. Everyone has different opportunities, so you don't have to sigh with emotion. Xiaohua said with a smile, From the foundation establishment stage to the gold core stage, I don't know how many cultivators have suffered. It's really not easy for you to be able to rely on the puppet sacrificial refining method and take a unique path to reach the late-stage gold core stage. A strange expression appeared on Emo Qingyuan's face, as well as a trace of awkwardness. He knew very well that in the puppet refinement method he gave Xiaohua back then, there were some small tricks. Xiaohua might not have known about it before, but how could Xiaohua, who was pregnant, not see through it? Since Xiaohua didn't mention it, Emo Qingyuan didn't dare to ask too much and just pretended that Xiaohua didn't notice. Of course, Emo Qingyuan was also somewhat surprised. Although Xiaohua was a nascent soul grandmaster, how could he see through the secret technique he cultivated? It seemed that in some jade slips, the nascent soul grandmasters mentioned didn't have such formidable strength, right? Yes. Emo Qingyuan didn't dare to think too much and hurriedly replied, Junior also felt that I was lucky, but since I've reached the late-stage gold core stage, I'm only a step away from the nascent soul stage, so Junior can't not think too much. That's why I came to the netherworld to rely on the metal and wood origin magnetic forces, to increase my chances of conceiving a baby. You've already used the origin magnetic forces when you were condensing your gold core. Now that you're pregnant, I'm afraid it won't be effective for you to use it again. Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, If you want to conceive a baby, you must first solve the problem of your lifespan, then consider it again. Xiaohua's words were like dispelling the clouds and revealing the moon, and it instantly caused Emo Qingyuan's eyes to light up. His figure trembled, and he closed his eyes to ponder for a moment before he immediately knelt before Xiaohua and said, Master Xiao, listen to Master Xiao's words. Junior feels that it's better than cultivating in seclusion for 100 years. If Senior doesn't mind, Junior wants to become Master Xiao's disciple. Quickly get up. Xiaohua smiled as he helped Emo Qingyuan up and said, "You and I aren't fated to be master and disciple, so there's no need to mention this matter again." Emo Qingyuan wasn't surprised by this outcome. Although Xiaohua didn't mention the sacrificial puppet refining technique from before, it didn't mean that he didn't know about it. There was no need for him to take a scheming golden core cultivator as his disciple. Alas! Emo Qingyuan stood up and sighed. If Junior had heard Senior's words 50 years ago, I'm afraid I would have been pregnant long ago. At this point, Emo Qingyuan's eyes lit up again as if he had thought of something. He smiled and said, "It's not too late now. Although Junior doesn't have much lifespan left, I heard that there's a rejuvenation chamber of commerce in the country of Shi that sells rejuvenation pills. Junior should hurry over and take a look. Perhaps I'll have some opportunities." After he finished speaking, Emo Qingyuan wanted to bow and leave, but Xiaohua hurriedly raised his hand and said, "Fellow Taoist Mo, don't be in such a hurry, I wouldn't dare. Senior, it's enough for you to call Junior Qing." Emo Qingyuan said respectfully. Xiaohua nodded and asked, "What's this rejuvenation chamber of commerce?" "Senior, don't you know about the rejuvenation chamber of commerce?" Emo Qingyuan asked curiously. Junior heard that the rejuvenation chamber of commerce belongs to the Imperial Thunder sect? Since Senior is a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect, how could you not know about the rejuvenation chamber of commerce? P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Chapter 5073. Haha, I was expelled from the Imperial Thunder sect a long time ago. Xiaohua replied, "Maybe you were in the extreme north and didn't know." Oh. Emo Qingyuan was shocked. The Imperial Thunder sect actually expelled a master like you? How is that possible? That was hundreds of years ago. Xiaohua said with a smile. Emo Qingyuan smiled bitterly. The Imperial Thunder sect must be regretting it now. They actually gave away a nascent soul master. Don't mention this again. Xiaohua waved his hand. Let's talk about the rejuvenation chamber of commerce. This. Emo Qingyuan said embarrassedly, "I've disappointed you. I was in the extreme north and just recently arrived in the 3 countries of cultivation. Because I didn't have much time left, I didn't dare to delay and went to the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce. I only heard that the Rejuvenation Chamber of Commerce is a large chamber of commerce in the country of Shi. It often holds auctions in the country of Shi. Because this Chamber of Commerce has the rejuvenation pill that other places don't have, it's called the Rejuvenation Chamber of Commerce. I really don't know about other things." Xiaohua nodded. Needless to say, the Rejuvenation Chamber of Commerce was definitely created by Qian Diheng. Then, Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, "Emo Qing, you and I have some fate. You also have some credibility about the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce. Therefore, although I can't accept you as my disciple, I can give you some opportunities. However, I want to remind you that after you succeed in your cultivation, you should treat the world with kindness. Think more about the good of others and less about the bad of others. In particular, don't do anything that offends the heavens and reason." Emo Qingyuan was delighted at first, then he pondered over Xiaohua's words and bowed. "Master Xiao, don't worry. I admit that I'm not a good person, but I haven't done anything bad. The word, credibility, still has some weight in my heart." "Good." Xiaohua nodded and took out a jade bottle and a few jade slips from his chest. He handed them to Emo Qingyuan and said, "This is the rejuvenation pill, the cultivation method of soul splitting, some sword formations, and puppet cultivation methods. Take it and cultivate by yourself." Ah? Emo Qingyuan knew that Xiaohua had some good things for him, but he didn't expect it to be such good things. The cultivation method of spirit severing, that was a priceless treasure. Apart from the big sects of the 3 kingdoms, which cultivator could possess it? Emo Qingyuan actually didn't dare to believe that Xiaohua would give him such a cultivation technique. Of course, even after Emo Qingyuan took the jade slip and scanned it with his divine sense, he was still unable to confirm that the obscure cultivation technique was for severed soul cultivators to cultivate. However, he could still see the cultivation method of the early nascent soul stage. At the very least, It was very consistent with the incomplete cultivation method that he obtained. When he looked at the sword formation and puppet cultivation method with an inconceivable thought, he couldn't help but kneel in midair again, kowtow and say, "Master Xiao, this junior has let you down. There's no need for that." Xiaohua helped Emo Qingyuan up and said with a smile, "You just have to remember how I treated you, and you should treat those juniors that you feel have a bright future in the future. Similarly, you should use your own heart to accommodate this world." "Yes, I understand." Emo Qingyuan stood up and almost swore, "This junior will definitely pursue seniors' teachings throughout my life. I will treat the world with kindness." To the juniors, "I hope you will keep your word." Xiaohua said with a smile, "I also hope to see the moment you step into the spirit-severing stage." "Thank you, Master Xiao." Emo Qingyuan bowed again. "This junior will take his leave. Go." Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "This is the edge of Million Mountains Meng, the boundary between soul cultivators and sword cultivators. Be careful." "Ah?" Emo Qingyuan was even more shocked. He didn't know how he suddenly came here from the netherworld. However, he didn't dare to ask too much. He faced Xiaohua and slowly flew away respectfully, only turning around when he was far away. Xiaohua is really a nascent soul cultivator? Emo Qingyuan was secretly puzzled, but after a moment he smiled again. It doesn't matter what Taoist Zhao's strength is. With such a kind and virtuous senior in this world, the stronger he is, the better. I will first take the rejuvenation pill and find a place far away to meditate. When I step into the nascent soul realm, I will pay him a visit. Emo Qingyuan had mysteriously come and left without a sound. Aside from Xiaohua, no one else knew. However, this night had changed Emo Qingyuan a lot. No one knew which of the younger generation would benefit from Emo Qingyuan in the future, but if they thought about it, it would all be because of Xiaohua. Seeing the sun rise in the east, the thunderbolt Immortal flew back quietly. Looking at his narrowed eyes, Xiaohua couldn't help but think of shifty eyes. The Taoist thunderclap had returned. Behind him were naturally Li Zongbao and Kai Wuxia. Being together with Li Zongbao, Kai Wuxia was actually somewhat shy. When she saw Xiaohua, she called out, "Fellow Taoist Xiao," and didn't know what else to say. After all, she already knew from Li Zongbao that a long time had passed. Xiaohua was no longer the little cultivator under her protection, but rather a mighty cultivator so tall that she couldn't imagine. However, she still quietly pulled on Li Zongbao's Taoist robe. Li Zongbao understood and the two of them were about to bow down. Xiaohua hurriedly raised his hand and helped the two of them up. He said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Kai, why do you have to do this?" Xiaohua's words, "fellow Taoist Kai," made Kai Wuxia feel somewhat familiar. If Li Zongbao wasn't next to her, she really would feel that this was no different from several hundred years ago. Unfortunately, Kai Wuxia still sighed and said, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, I don't dare to say too much. However, this is a genuine life-saving grace, so I have to thank you." "Fellow Taoist Kai is wrong," Xiaohua replied. "The one who left your soul was the earth, but the one who saved your life was the heavens. The heavens used my hands to revive you. This is the virtue of the heavens and the earth, so I don't dare to take credit. Besides, my cultivation came from the heavens and the earth, so I should repay the heavens and the earth and benefit the people. Fellow Taoist, if you worship me, wouldn't you be humiliating me? If I had this divine ability and didn't save you, wouldn't I be ashamed to face the heavens and the earth because of my own selfish desires, and my cultivation would be like flowing water for nothing? Therefore, if fellow Taoist wants to thank, then thank the heavens for their kindness, thank the earth for their virtue, and thank the heavens for giving you another chance." Xiaohua's words were profound. His words were mixed with the language of Confucian cultivators, and there were even some parts that didn't make sense. However, this didn't affect Kai Wuxia and Li Zongbao's understanding. Xiaohua revered the heavens and was grateful to the heavens and the earth. They looked at each other, then knelt down and kowtowed to the heavens, the earth, the sun and the moon, saying, "Above the heavens, below the earth, Li Zongbao and Kai Wuxia kowtow to the heavens and the earth, and thank the heavens and the earth for giving us the chance to grow old." We won't disappoint the heavens and the earth, and will live together for the rest of our lives, fellow Taoist. Xiaohua suddenly heard the voice of the Thunderbolt Immortal and asked, "Is this the legendary kowtow to the heavens and the earth?" Of course not. Xiaohua replied, "Kowtowing to the heavens and the earth before entering the bridal chamber is the custom of the human race." Oh. The Thunderbolt Immortal mumbled and didn't say anything else. After Li Zongbao and Kai Wuxia stood up, Xiaohua said again, "Fellow Taoist Kai's resurrection will definitely cause a disturbance in the future. The two of you don't need to mention I. Just say that it's a gift from the heavens and the earth, and that the glory belongs to the heavens and the earth." "I understand." Li Zongbao had long been accustomed to Xiaohua's low profile, so he nodded slightly and said. Xiaohua thought for a moment, then said, "Also, I have something to remind the two of you. Although Senior Marshal Brother Li is infatuated with fellow Taoist Kai, and even the heavens and the earth can feel that fellow Taoist Kai is also worried about Senior Marshal Brother Li in her heart, the two of you haven't been together for a long time, so it's inevitable that there will be some grudges between you two in the future. I hope that at that time, fellow Taoist Kai can think about Senior Marshal Brother Li's hard work for the past few hundred years, and Senior Marshal Brother Li can think about fellow Taoist Kai's loneliness in the crystal coffin. In this world, there's nothing more important than the separation of life and death. Since the two of you have already experienced the separation of life and death, you should be able to accept everything in this world. Fellow Taoist Xiao." As soon as Kai Wuxia heard Xiaohua's words, she understood a lot. She shouted, then immediately thought for a moment, and said, "Forget it, I'll still call you Taoist Xiao. I heard from Zongbao that Taoist Zhao's name is extremely famous in the Daybreak continent." Xiaohua shrugged his shoulders, and with an indifferent expression, he replied, "Why should we care about some title between us? Just like before, calling me Xiaohua is also fine. In front of others, it's better to call me Taoist Xiao." Li Zongbao also echoed, "It might not matter to us, but if others hear it, they'll feel that a certain person has no respect for others and doesn't understand etiquette." "As you wish," Xiaohua said with a smile. And Kai Wuxia continued, "I understand Taoist Zhao's words very clearly. These words should still be remembered by I in my heart. Of course, I also understand that little sister's aspirations are extremely high. If she misunderstands Taoist Xiao in any way, I will definitely explain it to her in private." Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Fellow Taoist, you misunderstood." Seeing this, Li Zongbao continued, "Wuxia has already been resurrected, and my greatest wish in this life has already been fulfilled. Moreover, with Junior Brother's previous cultivation method, my future cultivation will also be smooth. Just now, Wuxia said that she misses her family very much and wants to go back to the Kai family. If Junior Brother doesn't have anything else to do, why don't we go together?" Xiaohua saw that the more he explained, the more he made things worse. He simply shook his head and said, "Senior Brother Li, I'll go to the Kai family, but not now. Junior Brother has more important things to do." "Oh, if Senior Brother Li needs it, how about Junior Brother send you back?" After Xiaohua said this, he regretted it first. After all, he said that he didn't have time, and then he said that he wanted to send the two people back. Wasn't this the legendary contradiction? Fortunately, Li Zongbao and Kai Wuxia didn't know what the space escape technique was. The two of them hurriedly waved their hands. Li Zongbao said, "If Junior Brother has something important to do, you can go and do it. The two of us want to return slowly. After all, Wuxia hasn't traveled to Huan country and other places yet. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, collect, reward, and thank you for all forms of support." Chapter 5074. "And that's good." Xiaohua thought for a moment and said with a smile, "However, I'm not at ease with Senior Marshal Brother Li taking care of fellow Taoist Kai alone. How about I help you find an escort?" "Escort?" Li Zongbao and Kai Wuxia were surprised. They didn't understand what escort meant. However, Xiaohua didn't explain. He took out a few storage pouches from the space and handed them to Kai Wuxia. "Fellow Taoist Kai, These are some spiritual pills and cultivation methods suitable for you. Since senior martial brother Li has cultivated the 9 transformations golden pill, you might as well follow his lead. Usually he can also guide your cultivation and you won't be lonely. Xiaohua's follow his lead was somewhat ambiguous. Kai Wuxia's face was slightly red, but she didn't say anything after receiving the storage pouches. When Kai Wuxia received the storage pouches, Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "Let's go. Little brother will take fellow Taoist Kai to see senior martial brother Li's confidant." Kai Wuxia was surprised and looked at Li Zongbao with some puzzlement. Li Zongbao smiled calmly and held Kai Wuxia's small hand without saying anything. Seeing the surrounding wind and light rapidly moving, Li Zongbao and Kai Wuxia steadied themselves and saw Yi Yin and Guyu standing quietly in front of them. Kai Wuxia? Although the appearance of Xiaohua and others was strange, but hearing the movement, Guyu and Yi Yin immediately raised their heads. Seeing the living Kai Wuxia standing in front of them, Guyu couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Using both hands to cover her mouth, her eyes widened, full of disbelief. She had seen Li Zongbao whispering in front of the crystal coffin more than once, but she never dreamed that she would see the living Kai Wuxia one day. Although Yi Yin hadn't seen the crystal coffin, he heard Zhang Qingxiao talk about it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have helped Li Zongbao so decisively. Yi Yin glanced at the beautiful Kai Wuxia in astonishment before immediately shifting his gaze to Xiaohua. However, he merely glanced at him before lowering his head respectfully and didn't say a single word. His heart was already as clear as a mirror. When faced with such a cultivator with the ability of creation, how could his gaze dare to blaspheme? Wuxia. After Guyu calmed down a little, Li Zongbao pulled Kai Wuxia's hand and flew in front of Guyu. "This is Miss Guyu, a swordsman of the Huan country's Void Heaven Sword School. After the great battle of the Tao of Sword, I came to Mount Meng alone, and I met her, who was also traveling alone. Oh, speaking of which, do you still remember that I told you about junior brother Zhao's title that caused sword cultivators to tremble with fear in the battle of the Sword Tao? Hee. How could the quick-witted Kai Wuxia not know what had happened?" She smiled and nodded. "You just said it, how could I not remember? Is it Terrifying Phoenix or Nameless?" "It should be the Terrifying Phoenix." Li Zongbao glanced at Guyu and probed. Guyu bit her lips and forced a smile. "It's the Horrifying Phoenix. Later, I found out that the Terrifying Phoenix and John Doe were the same person." Li Zongbao said with a smile, "When I first saw Miss Guyu, I was a little vigilant. But when I saw her being very polite to me and heard her talking about the Terrifying Phoenix, I knew that Miss Guyu had a good understanding of the essence of the great battle of the Tao of Sword because junior brother Xiao had spared her life. Therefore, she resolutely escaped from the battle. And I also respected Miss Guyu's behavior, so I followed her to Mount Meng to train myself." Li Zongbao said concisely. Guyu was a little unnatural. She looked at Kai Wuxia awkwardly, and then looked at Xiaohua for help. As for Kai Wuxia, she was looking at this sword cultivator who was much stronger than her, whose appearance and figure were not inferior to hers. She was smiling, and no one knew what she was thinking. Finally, Li Zongbao talked about meeting Qi Nongxue and Yiyu. Although Li Zongbao did not say what Guyu said at that time, Kai Wuxia could feel Guyu's persistence from Guyu's action of leaving Li Zongbao and going back to Void Heaven Sword School with Qi Nongxue and the others. "Fortunately," Li Zongbao said with a smile, "with junior brother Zhao's appearance, Lu Ruochang had to leave in a hurry like a stray dog, Sister Guyu." Kai Wuxia gave up on Li Zongbao and flew to the front of Guyu as she held Guyu's hand and spoke with sincerity. "I know that these years Zongbao has been very difficult, but I did not know that you were accompanying him by his side. I'm really grateful to you. I've walked between life and death, and I've already accepted it. The journey from here to the Kai family of Luyang is really long. Zongbao and I are too lonely. If you don't mind, how about we enjoy the scenery along the way?" "Wuxia?" Li Zongbao frowned. When he was about to speak, Kai Wuxia turned around and smiled. "Zongbao, didn't Zhenren Shao just say that? No matter what happens, I have to think more about you. Sister Kai." Unfortunately, before Kai Wuxia finished speaking, Guyu smiled and pulled her hand out of Kai Wuxia's hand. She said neither arrogantly nor humbly, "Thank you for your kindness, but I think although the scenery along the way is good, it's better for two people to enjoy it together. I won't disturb you." After that, Guyu looked at Li Zongbao and said, "Senior brother Li, congratulations. If there's a dual cultivation celebration, don't forget to inform me." Li Zongbao nodded and agreed like an unromantic blockhead. Guyu finally looked at Xiaohua and knelt in the air. "Junior thanks Senior Xiao for teaching me." "Guyu." Xiaohua looked at Guyu and knew that she looked strong, but her heart was miserable. He said, "Your aptitude is average, but you have a big heart. If you want, I'll let my disciples accept you as a disciple." "Many thanks for Senior's kindness." Guyu answered stubbornly, "I'm a disciple of the Void Heaven Sword School. As long as Sword Master Chong doesn't expel me from the sword school, I can't betray my master. I've just collected the corpses of Qin Nongxue and Lu Su. I'm going back to meet Sword Master now." "Fine." Xiao Huan naturally couldn't force her. He nodded and smiled. "I'm in charge of the Fortune Gate. The Fortune Gate's door will always be open for you. As long as you want, you can come find me at any time. Many thanks for Senior's kindness." Guyu stood up and nodded to everyone. She urged her body and flew away on the invisible sword. "Senior, please wait a moment." After Guyu flew away, Yin whispered to Xiaohua, "Junior will send a few disciples to protect Guyu." "Very good." Xiaohua smiled and nodded. Kai Wuxia looked at Guyu's back with interest and said with a smile, "This little girl is quite stubborn." "What little girl?" Xiaohua said grumpily. "She's a third-grade illusory swordsman. If there's no accident, she will definitely step into the sword transformation realm within 30 years. She's older than you." "So what if she's older than me?" Kai Wuxia smiled and said, "If she comes, she's still a little sister." Li Zongbao didn't understand and said, "She won't come." How could Kai Wuxia not know Li Zongbao's heart? Without her, Li Zongbao was already a Lu Xiaohui. Now that he had her, if he couldn't be a Lu Xiaohui, then wouldn't it be her fault? Therefore, Kai Wuxia responded and flew back to Li Zongbao's side. She put her arm around Li Zongbao's arm and said with a smile, "I understand." Not long after, Yin flew back. Xiaohua said, "Yin, Senior Martial Brother Li and Kai Wuxia are going back to the Kai family in Liang. I can't follow them closely. I'll leave their safety to you." "Senior, please rest assured." Yin bowed and said, "Leave everything to me." As Xiaohua spoke, he took out a storage pouch from his space and passed it to Yin. He said, "I don't have time to guide you on your cultivation technique for now. These are rare spirit fruits and spirit wine in the Dawn Rain continent. Many of them are useful in replenishing one's lifespan." Speaking up to here, Xiaohua raised his brows and looked into the distance. He didn't say anything else and threw the storage pouch to Yin. He said to Li Zongbao and Kai Wuxia, "Senior Martial Brother Li, fellow Taoist Kai, I have something to do. I'll take my leave first." After he finished speaking, Xiaohua's figure flashed and he disappeared. "Farewell, Senior." Li Zongbao and Kai Wuxia cupped their hands to send him off. Yin didn't dare to delay and respectfully knelt down and kowtowed as he shouted. After waiting for a moment, Yin stood up and said to Li Zongbao and Kai Wuxia, "Seniors, let's go." Kai Wuxia didn't know Yi Yin's identity. Seeing that she couldn't see through Yi Yin's cultivation at all, she hurriedly smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist, you don't have to be so courteous. The journey is long, don't call me Senior." I don't dare." Yi Yin said with a smile, "With Senior Xiao in front of me, how can I call you fellow Taoists?" Alright. Kai Wuxia wanted to say something, but when she thought about the relationship between her younger sister and Xiaohua, even if she was immortal, this cultivator in front of her had to call her Senior. Therefore, she could only nod and agree. However, before they flew up, the female cultivator's curiosity flared up again. She couldn't help but ask, "Zongbao, what do you think Junior Martial Brother Zhao's cultivation is now?" "I'm not sure. I didn't ask him." Li Zongbao answered honestly. "Maybe he's transcending tribulation?" "What? Transcending tribulation?" Kai Wuxia cried out and said, "Then Then isn't he very close to the Great Ascension stage? Once he reaches the Great Ascension stage, won't he ascend? Since when did our Dawn Rain continent have such a powerful expert? Seniors. Looking at the two seniors who were confused by the situation, the spectator Yin said with a smile, Junior feels that Senior Xiao is far from a Great Ascension stage expert. How is that possible? Li Zongbao was also stunned. Is there a cultivator who surpasses the Great Ascension stage in this world? Seniors, have you heard of a cultivator who can save people's lives? Yin didn't say much, but just one sentence was enough to enlighten the two. Yes, although Xiaohua mentioned it casually, but who in this world had ever seen a cultivator who could save people's lives? Li Zongbao had traveled through millions of Meng mountains in the past few hundred years, but he had never found such a person. He hadn't even heard of such a person in legends. Could a cultivator like Xiaohua still be considered a cultivator in the human world? Oh no! Wuxia suddenly cried out, Junior martial brother Xiao has ascended. What should I do? P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Chapter 5075. Not to mention that Wuxia was worried about her sister, Xiaohua teleported high up in the sky. In just a moment the space was torn apart, and Feng Wu and Demon Venerable Shi flew out. What's the situation? Xiaohua went straight to the point. The situation is not good. Feng Wu understood Xiaohua's mood and didn't say much, concluding with one sentence. Xiaohua knew that he was facing an immortal formation. How could he find a way to break the formation in one go? However, he couldn't help but curse, damn it. Big brother. Demon Venerable Shi hurriedly comforted. Although the situation is not good, Big Brother's guess is right. The information that fifth brother got from the Great Sage Hall is also not bad. There is indeed a problem with the heaven, earth, and human peaks of the Tai Ching sect. I approached the 3 peaks from the sky and didn't feel anything different, but if I flew up from the bottom of the 3 peaks, I felt an aura that I was especially afraid of. If I'm not wrong, it should be a Buddhist formation. Other than this mountain peak, the little brother could pass through the other 2 mountain peaks and fly out from the other 2 places. And in this space, there are extremely weak traces of a formation. This trace. Ordinary cultivators, even if fifth brother said it, he wouldn't be able to sense it. Demon Venerable is talking about the heaven peak. Feng Wu explained, I can reach the top of these 3 peaks and enter the so-called 9 heavens. Among them, the earth peak I is the easiest. The formation on it should be a demonic formation. If that's the case, then there should be a Tao formation on the human peak. Xiaohua frowned, then looked at Demon Venerable Shi and asked, You really can't see anything? Reporting to Big Brother. Demon Venerable Shi was a bit embarrassed and replied, I was boasting too much earlier. The Buddhist, Taoist, and demonic formations are really flawless. There is no trace of the formation at all. I can't break the formation either. What if we forcefully push down the heaven, earth, and human peaks? Xiaohua probed. Demon Venerable Shi didn't hesitate and said, When I came back, I already discussed this with fifth brother. Oh? What's the result of your discussion? Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and asked curiously. Feng Wu asked, Fellow Taoist, if you set up the array formation, how would you deal with the 3 peaks? Xiaohua pondered for a moment, and his expression changed again. A moment later, he said bitterly, If the heaven, earth, and mortal peaks are the eyes of the formation, then these 3 giant peaks are the greatest flaws. If I were to set up the formation, I would definitely prevent anyone from toppling these 3 peaks. I must strengthen these 3 peaks so that no one will be able to topple them. Of course, this is a passive defense. If it were an active defense, it would be even more troublesome. If someone were to attack these 3 peaks, I would definitely activate other methods. Not only do we use other methods. Demon Sovereign Shi said seriously, if we are more vicious, it will cause the immortal formation to mutate even more. You're saying? Xiaohua had an epiphany. The immortal formation will expand and move toward the Dawn Rain continent or the West Ocean, causing a change in heaven and earth? This is just little brother's guess. Demon's sovereign sure nodded. Alas, it seems our plan to break the immortal formation by force will fail. Xiaohua sighed. We still have to find the flaws of the immortal formation before we can break it. That should be the case. Feng Wu nodded. Although we've already arrived at the Dawn Rain continent, we can't act in a hurry. We can only slowly find a way to break the formation. Xiaohua responded and said, Fellow Taoists, please go back and rest first. Later, I will settle some karma. Fellow Taoist, you have a lot of karma in the Dawn Rain continent. Which one should you go to settle? Taoist which asked. Naturally, it's Xian Wan, who has done I a great favor. Xiaohua smiled. Previously, I only thought that it was easy to let Yuan Ya and Dai go together. Later, I realized that Xian Wan's favor to I was as heavy as a mountain. I can't slack off and have to go there personally. Now that the matter of Million Meng Mountains has been settled, and Her Majesty is still trapped in the formation, I should save her first. Taoist which understood and said, Fellow Taoist, you know how to repay kindness. That's not bad. You've set a good example for us. However, before we go, we still have to make a trip to Mingxi and get the metal and wood essences in our hands. Xiaohua smiled. Let's not have any more twists and turns and start a dispute. Let's go. His clones laughed and flashed into the space. Just as Xiaohua was about to move, he heard Taoist Thunderbolt shout in the space, Fellow Taoist, that little Yi has woken up. Alright. Xiaohua was somewhat helpless. This was really one thing after another, and everything seemed to be urgent. Xiaohua took out the Kunlun mirror. As the light vibrated, Jiyu and Yiyun were sent out. The two of them came out of the space and looked around strangely. Their gazes fell on Xiaohua, and the two of them called out at the same time, Xiao. Taoist Xiao? Why is it you? Xiaohua smiled and said, Why can't it be me? Don't tell me it's still that Bai Fei? Hearing the name Bai Fei, anger unconsciously appeared on Jiyu's face, but Yiyun was somewhat embarrassed. Fellow Taoist Xiao, where is this? Jiyu looked at the unfamiliar place and asked curiously, Could it be the Lost Land? Xiaohua replied, You're right, this is the Lost Land. But Yiyun was puzzled. Senior Xiao, this junior clearly fell into the blood sea with Jiyu that day. Speaking up to hear, Yiyun and Jiyu looked at each other at the same time. Shock appeared in their eyes, and they called out at the same time again, Could it be that you saved us? While speaking, Jiyu hurriedly released his divine sense to check. This time, it didn't matter, but Jiyu's head buzzed. Xiaohua's cultivation was no longer the middle nascent soul stage from before, but a realm that was like a giant peak, and he couldn't see the peak at a glance. Damn it. Jiyu immediately thought of his behavior in the Heaven-Wind Forbidden Lands maze, and cursed in a low voice. He hurriedly bowed and said, Junior greets Senior Xiao. Senior Xiao? Seeing Jiyu bow, Yiyun didn't dare to neglect and bowed as well. No need to be so polite. Xiaohua helped them up and said, You and I are in the same line of work, and this old man was moved by Jiyu's infatuation. In that dangerous blood sea, Jiyu risked his life to save Yiyun. Even this old man felt admiration, so this old man reached out to save you. It was just a small effort, so don't worry about it. But Bai Fei? Yiyun knew that it was inappropriate to ask about Bai Fei's life at this time, but she couldn't help but ask. Bai Fei had another opportunity. Xiaohua replied, She was saved by that angel from the Holy Light Realm, and it is said that she also came to the Lost Land. Yiyun's face was filled with joy, but it turned pale in a moment. She said in a low voice, Senior, thank you for telling this junior this news, hee. Xiaohua looked at the little girl and said, Yiyun, it seems that you still miss Bai Fei. Don't forget who abandoned you in the blood sea, and who reached out to you at the critical moment. This junior won't forget Jiyu's kindness. Yiyun didn't hide it and said faintly, But this junior can't blame Bai Fei. After all, in that situation he couldn't even escape, so how could he care about others? Now that fate has made a fool of us, this junior can't blame others. If it was so simple, this old man wouldn't be here talking to you so much. Xiaohua said with a cold smile, Do you think that the matter between you and Jiyu will happen so easily? Senior? Yiyun was shocked, her face flushed red, and asked shyly, "What do you mean by that?" "It's very simple," Xiaohua said indifferently. "Bai Fei doesn't have you in his heart. He has been using you, and his goal is to obtain your absolute fiend profound yin." "How is that possible?" Yiyun was like a girl who fell in love in the secular world. She couldn't believe her ears and couldn't help but ask. So Xiaohua told her everything that happened in the Heavenly Wind Forbidden Area, and how he found out that Yiyun had the absolute fiend profound yin when he saved her, and that there was something abnormal in her body. Finally, he said, "If I'm not wrong, Bai Fei gave you some kind of pill to expel the absolute fiend profound yin from your body, and then he took the opportunity to steal it." When Yiyun heard this, the blush on her face disappeared, and her face turned pale. She already thought of the pills that Bai Fei gave her. "Damn it," Jiyu cursed, "how can this guy be so despicable? If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have let him go in the maze that day." "You're wrong," Xiaohua said with a smile. "You were right to let him go. If you didn't, I'm afraid the one who would die would be you. How did you know Bai Fei's arrangements?" When Xiaohua finished explaining Bai Fei's arrangements, Jiyu's back was drenched in cold sweat. He really didn't expect Bai Fei's schemes to be so deep. Many things were actually very easy to see through from a different perspective. When Xiaohua said this, Yiyun pondered for a moment and immediately understood many of the key points. She sighed and took out the wind wheel from the heaven and earth ring and handed it to Xiaohua. "Senior Xiao, this is a gift from Bai Fei. I'll have to trouble you. If you see Bai Fei, please return this to him." "Hee, it's better for you to do this yourself." Xiaohua smiled and waved his hand. He didn't take the wind wheel. "Io, senior." Suddenly, Jiyu thought of something and hurriedly cried out. If Bai Fei didn't die, wouldn't he be in the Lost Land? If he knows that Junior and little Yiyun are also alive? Xiaohua shook his head. "I don't think you need to worry about this. Although Bai Fei is eager for quick success, he is still a cultivator with principles. He won't kill you just because you know his background. He also won't harm you just because you stole Yiyun. In his eyes, there is only cultivation." P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5076. Junior is not afraid. Jiyu said tentatively, "But Junior is afraid that he will attack little Yi." "Oh right, there is still Du Peng." Hearing this, Xiaohua suddenly realized that Du Peng had revealed his identity as a devil in the Wuming Mountain range. How could he allow Jiyu and Yiyun, who knew his identity, to live? "Forget it." Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, "Since you are in the Lost Land and can't return to the defeated Immortal Union, why don't this old man let my disciple accept you into my fortune gate?" "Senior has a disciple?" Jiyu and Yiyun were surprised. Xiaohua stroked his chin and said with a smile, "This old man is the senior Zhang Xiaohua that you are talking about." Now, the Heaven Alliance and Tao Alliance of the Yi-Lin continent should know this old man's real name. You are just in the Lost Land and haven't received the message yet. "What? You are senior Zhang Xiaohua?" Jiyu and Yiyun inserted a 7-layered light feather into their imagination, but they probably couldn't imagine that Xiaohua was Zhang Xiaohua. They couldn't help but exclaim, "That? The senior who modified the nascent soul and primordial spirit cultivation methods?" Seeing that the two were exclaiming too much, Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "No need to be so surprised. You will know in the future." Xiaohua activated the Kunlun mirror and casually found a spirit-severing stage disciple from the space and asked him to accept the two as his disciples. Then he gave them some pills and sent them to the Shenhua continent. He stretched out his hand and tore open the void and went to the netherworld. More than a month later, in the extreme north of the country of Shi, it was already midwinter. Snowflakes fell from the sky as if they were dancing in the wind. On the ground, although it was not completely covered in white, there were still layers of white that looked like duckweeds of various sizes floating in the air. The landscape here was different from other places. Between the white duckweeds, there were many protrusions. These high and low hills were like the waves of the earth, frozen in place and welcoming the cold wind. Xiaohua flew out from the void and looked at the sky first. Then he looked around. Unfortunately, within 1,000 miles, it was either white or gray. If it was not snow-covered withered grass, then it was bare hills. How could he see where he was? Forget it. It should be here. I went from drifting cloud lake to dark mystery, and then from dark mystery to the north of the state of Shi. Surprisingly, I didn't take too many detours. That's already pretty good. Xiaohua mocked himself and took out the Kunlun mirror. As he activated his magic power, Dai and Yuanya flew out. Yuanya was still fine. He stood in midair and respectfully saluted Xiaohua. When Dai saw such a familiar scene, how could she hide it? She couldn't help but cry as she whispered, "Nyang Nyang." However, when she looked around, she hurriedly stopped crying and bowed. "Greetings, sect master. This disciple has been rude." Xiaohua helped Dai up and said with a smile, "This kind of rudeness is good. You don't forget your roots and care about your loved ones. This old man is more than happy, so how can I blame you?" "Master, is this the Dawn Rain continent?" Yuanya looked around and asked somewhat abruptly. "Sai, that's right." Xiaohua also looked around. Although he had just seen it, it was as if he had seen it 1,000,000 times and didn't get tired of it. He raised his hand and pointed around, sighing. "This is the Dawn Rain continent that this old man cultivated and grew up in." "Sect master?" Gathered her emotions and said with a smile, "Didn't you say that when we arrived at the Dawn Rain continent, you would have Yuanya come with this disciple? Why did you come personally today?" Xiaohua replied, "This old man previously thought that the Dongshan Yi who imprisoned Nyang Nyang was only an ordinary demon. You and Yuanya could break the demon formation without needing this old man to do anything. Later on, this old man felt that Nyang Nyang's kindness to this old man was as heavy as a mountain. If this old man didn't come, how could I face Nyang Nyang? So after dealing with some trivial matters, I went to the north of the country of Shi according to what you said earlier. Take a look, is this the place where you and Nyang Nyang were ambushed that day?" "Sect master?" Dai hurriedly replied, "The scenery here is similar to the one where this disciple was ambushed previously. However, this disciple was young at that time and was carried by Nyang Nyang to fly. Moreover, after escaping, I was seriously injured and my mind wasn't clear. In the end I was captured by Dao cultivators, so this disciple already doesn't know the specific location. Then it's a bit strange." Xiaohua frowned. "This old man has just checked the area within 10,000 li. There isn't any aura of a demon formation?" When Dai heard this, her face unconsciously turned pale. She said in a low voice, "Could it be that Dongshan Yi has already made his move? It should be like this." Xiaohua's mood was also heavy. He said, "After all, several hundred years have passed. If Dongshan Yi has any intentions, he would definitely make his move." "That," Yunya said in a low voice, "Don't worry, I'll accompany you to look again. If Nyang Nyang really has met with misfortune, I'll help you catch that old wolf Dongshan Yi, skin him, and pull out his tendons. Thank you." Dai saw that even Xiaohua couldn't find any trace of the Great Formation. She knew Nyang Nyang must have met with misfortune, so she felt a bit disheartened. She forced a smile and said, "I'd rather Nyang Nyang be safe and sound than kill Dongshan Yi. You wait and start from there?" Of course, Xiaohua wasn't willing to give up. After all, he only roughly looked around before. Moreover, this area was located at a spatial fault. He couldn't be completely sure that the Great Formation was no longer there. Flying north for 1,000 li, they crossed a yellow-brown desert. It was another high and low hill. It was extremely similar to the previous one. And here, they had already passed the spatial fault. Xiaohua released his divine sense. Unfortunately, when Xiaohua explored the surrounding 10,000 li, he still didn't find any traces of the demon formation. Xiaohua stood in the wind and snow and frowned. If Dongshan Yi killed Nyang Nyang, this is a bit troublesome. Just as Dai said, she's already gone. What's the use of revenge? Moreover, Nyang Nyang is a demon. She has fallen for a long time. Without a body, I have no way to revive her. Alas, Why are things in this world so unsatisfactory? After half a day, and Yuanya also came over. Looking at their expressions, they didn't look optimistic. Xiaohua didn't say much. He pointed at the 10,000 li in front of him and said, "This old man has already checked. You wait, look again." No need. Dai Er's expression had already calmed down. She shook her head and said, "Since Nyang has already fallen, disciple can only accept this fact. Disciple now only wants to find Dongshan Yi and cut him into pieces to avenge Nyang. All right." Xiaohua nodded. "The matter of revenge will be left to you and Yuanya. With Yuanya's strength, there should be few opponents in the Dawn Rain continent." "Yes, master." Yuanya bowed and said, "You must have been busy with saving the world. This kind of grievance will be left to this disciple." Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, "If that's the case, you two don't need to return to the Kunlun Immortal Paradise. Go to the country of Shi first and inquire about Dongshan Yi's whereabouts." "Thank you, Sect Master." Dai was obviously stronger and calmer than Xianwan. She had immediately changed her mind when she saw that Nyang had fallen. Now that Xiaohua had agreed to her request, she hurriedly bowed and said, "Nyang's matter is important to disciple, but compared to our Fortune Gate's matter, it is trivial. Our Fortune Gate's high-level disciples are all in the 3 mainlands. Disciple and Yuanya should follow Sect Master for now." No need." Xiaohua laughed and said, "While you two search for information, also check out the situation on the Dawn Rain continent and lay the foundation for our Fortune Gate's establishment on the Dawn Rain continent." "Yes, disciple understands." Dai hurriedly lowered her head and agreed. Yuanya looked around and asked, "Master, is this the country of Shi? Where should we go?" Xiaohua smiled and pointed to the south. "This is the north side of the country of Shi. That's the country of Shi. Further northeast is the Sky Patrol City, which is where this old man saved Dai." Speaking of this, Xiaohua's heart suddenly moved and he looked at Dai. Dai was a little confused as she didn't know why Xiaohua had suddenly stopped. "Don't be impatient," Xiaohua said and was about to teleport away, but after thinking for a while, he stopped and said to Yuanya and Dai, "This old man will wait for you here. Go to the nearby cultivators and ask them where the Sky Patrol City is and how far it is from here." "Yes, disciple understands." Dai and Yuanya didn't dare to delay and hurriedly teleported away. In less than half a cup of tea's time, Dai and Yuanya returned and reported, "Master, the Sky Patrol City is in the direction you just pointed out, but it's still several 100,000 li away." Xiaohua clapped and laughed. That's right. Now that our cultivation is high, several 100,000 li is not far in our eyes. This is also the place where the goddess and Dai escaped that day. It's also the place where Dai was captured by a Dao cultivator disciple. However, during the auction in the Sky Patrol City, most of the cultivators were Foundation Establishment cultivators. There were very few Golden Core cultivators. Their flying speed was slow and the range they could reach was small. Although the terrain here is similar to Dai's memory, it's too far away from the Sky Patrol City. Presumably, it's not here. If we fly in the direction of the Sky Patrol City, we will definitely find other clues. "Master, you're right, disciple just thought of it." Yuanya was not flattering Xiaohua. He really didn't think so much. As for Dai, she was too concerned. Seeing that she couldn't find the goddess, she couldn't help but feel confused. How could she think about the gap between her cultivation at that time and now? Then, Xiaohua led the two of them to release their divine senses and flew toward the Sky Patrol City. The 3 of them flew very slowly and carefully probed with their divine senses. However, after flying for a few days, they still couldn't find any trace of the demon array. During this period, the same hilly terrain appeared from time to time, but many places were still dominated by glaciers and mountains. Seeing that there were gradually snowy mountains and fewer hills, Er's face turned ugly again. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian. Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it a tip, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5077. Half a day later, seeing that the ground was covered in snow, which was completely different from Dai's memory. The three simply sped up. Just as they were flying, Xiaohua raised his hand and pointed ahead. There is a hilly area with a radius of hundreds of miles in front, which is now covered by snow. Further ahead, there will be an ice river, which is where Century City is located. If there is nothing here, I'm afraid there really isn't anything here. But Dai agreed, biting her lips lightly, urging her body to turn into a gust of wind and crash into the wind and snow. As he flew towards the hills in the distance, Xiaohua naturally released his divine sense. Unfortunately, when he flew closer, his divine sense had also carefully scanned the entire area within 1,000 li of the hills, but there was still no trace of the demon race's aura. Xiaohua couldn't help but curse in a low voice, "Damn it!" When they flew to the hills, Yuanya and Dai's faces were disappointed again. However, Xiaohua still said, "You wait and take a closer look." "Yes, master." Yuanya knew that there was no hope, but he still took Dai's hand and flew towards the hills. Dai even urged her body to escape into the ground to explore. After a full hour, the two of them finally flew back. Obviously, they didn't find anything. "Master." Er's expression was a little excited at this time, and she replied, "Disciple is sure that this is the place where Disciple and Empress were ambushed, because there is a hill in the distance that looks like Demon King Imosa. Disciple has some impression when she was unconscious and escaping. That's strange." Xiaohua frowned. "There is no aura of a demon array within a radius of 10,000 miles, but there is," Xiaohua said, pointing to a very far corner. "There is an aura of a magic array, which is very far from the ground, mixed with some fluctuations of a soul array. If there is no accident, it should be the remains of the battle between Dao cultivators and soul cultivators in Xiaoyu continent." Alas, Dai was helpless. She didn't find the remains of the magic array and soul array. Since Xiaohua could see it and said there was no aura of the demon clan, there must be no demon array within a radius of 10,000 miles, so Dai sighed. In that case, Dongshan must have killed Empress and then removed the demon array. "Let's go." Xiaohua nodded and waved his hand. However, after the three of them had flown for 100 miles, Xiaohua's heart suddenly shook, and he asked, "Dai, this old man wants to ask you, have you heard of the Heavenly Feather Holy World?" Dai hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Sick master, I know. That is the holy land of our flying feather race. The Sky Rain Realm, Sky Rending Realm, and the Phoenix Sacred Realm of the Wind Race have to go to the Holy Land every 10,000 years to select their holy maiden. Oh, if you don't know anything else, why do you remember it so clearly now?" Xiaohua smiled and asked, "If I'm not mistaken, Xianwan was previously the holy maiden of the Heavenly Blessing Palace, right?" Since these words were asked by Xiaohua and not spoken by Dai, also did not deny it. She nodded and said, "That's right, it's precisely so. Otherwise, Demon King Imosa wouldn't have married my lady." Well, with the status of the Tianfu Palace in the 10,000 Demon Realm, Xianwan marrying Demon King Imosa from the original realm should be climbing up the social ladder. Xiaohua nodded and asked again, "Then, have you heard the holy maiden talk about the Heavenly Feather Sacred Realm?" Dai listened and was a little puzzled, so she respectfully said, "Sect Master, I don't know why Master is asking about the Heavenly Feather Sacred Realm. Regarding the Heavenly Feather Sacred Realm, the Holy Maiden has told me a little. After all, there are some interesting things inside. However, as a member of the Wind Race, I don't dare to reveal too much about the Sacred Realm's secrets." "Oh, it's like this." Xiaohua smiled and said, "Because when this old man was in the Yilin continent, that is, on the other side of the Wuming Mountain range, I once heard that many years ago, many cultivators of my Dao sect crossed over to the 10,000 Demon Realm. Of course, they have long fallen. This old man did not see any humans in the 10,000 Demon Realm. However, they went to the 10,000 Demon Realm in order to establish a sect. Naturally, they also brought cultivation technique jade slips and other things. Although they fell, what about these cultivation techniques? Did they leave them behind? This old man came and went in a hurry in the 10,000 Demon Realm and did not pay too much attention. When I just flew here, this old man suddenly had a thought. Do Xian Wan and Dongshan Yi know my Dao Sex cultivation technique? They did not use it often in the 10,000 demon realm, but when they came to the Dawn Rain continent, their demon race's divine abilities were suppressed by the power of the realm. Do they know how to use Dao Sex magic? The thing that trapped the Holy Maiden was not a demon array, but a Dao Sex magic array, or perhaps a soul array. In fact, Xiaohua had another question in his heart. Naturally, it was related to the Kong clan of the Yilin continent. Since the Kong clan had a method to go to the Heavenly Feather Sacred Realm, it could be said that the Heavenly Feather Sacred Realm also had Dao Sex inheritance. Since Xian Wan was the Holy Maiden of the Heavenly Blessing Palace, it was normal for her to know some Dao Sex magic. When Dyer heard this, her face showed an excited expression and said anxiously, "Yes, yes. Master is right." Although this disciple was still young at that time, this disciple vaguely remembered that I often mentioned the word magic to the Holy Maiden. If it was magic, it should be the Dao Sex magic. Also, this disciple seems to remember that there was a green light in the array that trapped the Holy Maiden. This light did not belong to a demon array. Of course, most of the soul arrays have green light. This old man understands. Xiaohua immediately stopped and turned to look at the underground array and said, "Let's go. When we get back, whether or not it is the one that imprisoned the Holy Maiden, we should take a look first." After saying this, Xiaohua immediately urged the lightning escape and flew above the array in the blink of an eye. Then he narrowed his eyes and looked at it for a moment, and said to Dyer, who had just arrived, "This array is a bit strange. Rather than calling it an array, it is better to call it a soul array. It seems to be attacking the soul. Moreover, there are some green seal characters in the soul array that block the aura in the center of the array. Even this old man can't see it clearly. If this soul array was set up by Dongshan Yi, she must be proficient in soul techniques. Soul techniques are forbidden in our 10,000 demon realm. No demon race can cultivate it." Dyer whispered. "If those great sages find out, their race will be exterminated. In this world, there is no lack of humans and demons who are not afraid of death." Xiaohua himself was a Buddhist and soul cultivator. He said with emotion, "Maybe that Dongshan practiced soul techniques?" Then Xiaohua waved his hand. Kachacha! A burst of thunder sounded. A thunder hand that was more than 10 mu in size appeared out of thin air and grabbed towards the soul array deep in the ground. Rumble! A huge roar sounded, and the entire ground shook. A light green light that was several mu in size like a chicken egg was pulled out. This, Dyer sensed for a moment, but she could not sense the Holy Maiden's aura. Moreover, she did not have much impression of the aura of this soul array. Xiaohua glanced at it and smiled. "This is a shallow soul array. There is also a Dao Sect array mixed in. In the center, there is something similar to a sealed space. The seal has traces of the Dao Sect's 9 transformation golden pill. At the same time, it also has the power of the demon race's stars and moon. If there is no accident, it should be the Holy Maiden inside." "Holy Maiden!" Dyer cried tears of joy and was about to jump over. The soul array set up by Dongshan Yi looked very strange, but in Dyer's eyes, it was not too troublesome to break, so she could not help but want to take action. Xiaohua hurriedly stopped her. "Dyer, don't be anxious." Hearing this, Yuan Ye's figure swayed and immediately blocked in front of Dyer. Dyer turned her head and asked puzzledly, "Sect Master, is there anything wrong?" "Of course." Xiaohua nodded and raised a hand to point at the green pattern that looked like a crawling centipede. He said, "Look at the outer layer of the soul array. This is the soul cultivator's green seal text, but this green seal text has already mutated and is not pure. This mutation is very insidious. Not only does it corrode the caster's body, but it also allows the caster to borrow the power of the soul to attack the besieger. The caster can use the soul array to absorb the power of the wandering souls nearby, so the besieger will most likely die." "Then the Holy Maiden, she?" Dyer asked worriedly, "How is she?" "There's something like a sealed space inside the soul formation. It's filled with a holy aura. It's like the white light on the horn of a heavenly horse. This white light repels all evil and can even block the mutated green seal text. That's good. Without waiting for Xiaohua to finish, Dyer breathed a sigh of relief. Unfortunately, Xiaohua changed his tone and said, "However, this holy aura is a foreign object. Before using it, the caster seems to have been invaded by the green seal text, so the holy aura is no longer complete. After hundreds of years of erosion, the green seal text has already seeped into it. Damn it." Dyer said anxiously, "What should we do?" Yunya frowned and said, "Wait for Master to finish. If he could make a move, he would have done it long ago." Disciple knows her mistake. Dyer was shocked and knew that she had lost her cool. She hurriedly stopped and flew back to Xiaohua's side and whispered. Xiaohua did not blame her and continued, "However, since Dongshan Yi has not made a move yet, it means that the green seal text has not invaded the holy maiden's soul. Of course, I can't deny that Dongshan Yi has other plans, which is why he has kept the holy maiden alive until now." "Oh right, head elder." Dyer suddenly thought of something and said, "This sealed thing seems to be called a cocoon. It is a treasure from the original realm. It seems to be a gift from a great sage of the original realm. It is said that as long as one activates it, one's life will be saved. However, if one does not have the strength of a great sage, this cocoon will not be broken. Especially, this cocoon will turn into nothingness after a long time, and will be annihilated along with the person being protected." Dyer naturally did not know that Xiaohua had met many great sages in the 10,000 demon realm, and even killed 3 great sages of the demon clan. She was hiding something, but how could Xiaohua not know that this great sage was the Swift Cherry Great Sage? Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and... Chapter 5078. If it's something refined by the Swift Cherry Great Sage, then it's understandable. Xiaohua said indifferently, "This thing is indeed powerful, but if it's activated by the Empress' strength as an oceanic powerhouse, it's beyond her ability, and it's inevitable that there will be some flaws." Swift Cherry Great Sage? Dyer's eyes flashed with surprise, and she was secretly surprised. "What this old man said is nothing." Xiaohua finally said, "This old man can break it with a wave of my hand. The most troublesome thing is that Nyang's soul, body, and so on are connected to this cocoon. As long as there are any abnormal movements in the cocoon, she will sense it and immediately react from inside. In other words, the faster this old man breaks the array, the faster the Empress will die." This. Dai was also dumbfounded. She didn't expect the Empress to be so decisive, leaving no way out. But thinking about it carefully, being surrounded by Dongshan Yi, wasn't it a dead end? If it weren't for the existence of Xiaohua, who would know that Xian Wan was trapped here, and who would come to save her? As Xiaohua spoke, he raised his head and looked in a certain direction with a smile. "Of course, the most important thing is that since this soul formation has been activated, Dongshani will definitely sense it. With Dongshani here, we naturally have hope of breaking the formation." "Damn it." Dai smiled bitterly and cursed, blaming herself. This disciple was too worried. Please forgive this disciple. You were worried before because you were worried about the Empress, but now, it's because you are afraid of this place. Xiaohua smiled. Dai, you still haven't experienced enough. Seeing the place where you were heavily injured when you were young, your heart's foundation is shaken. From the perspective of my Dao sect, it's an unstable Dao heart. I'm not too sure about Xianwan's aptitude, but your aptitude is excellent. This old man has high hopes for you. If you have time in the future, you should learn more about the demonic spear with Yuanya, and use the demonic qi to sharpen your mind. Yes, this disciple understands. Dai's heart trembled, and she hurriedly bowed. It's good that you understand. Xiaohua nodded and rubbed his hands again. Lightning bolts as thin as hair shot out from the void and pierced into the soul formation like needles. Following the insertion of the lightning needles, the hundreds of dark green ribbons of light slowly stopped moving, like dead poisonous snakes stopped within the light. Then Xiaohua opened his mouth. Rumble. A few fist-sized green seal characters fell into the air. The void became extremely distorted. The green seal characters turned into strange tentacles and grabbed at the dark green ribbons of light. Zzz. The ribbons of light let out hissing sounds as they were slowly pulled out. However, the band of light had only been pulled up a few feet when the holy white light on the left began to sway violently. A faint sense of violence was suddenly born. Troublesome. Xiaohua frowned. He made a grabbing motion with his right hand and a shackling force landed on the white light. The berserk force instantly calmed down. However, at the same time that the berserk force calmed down, strands of fine lines started to appear within the white light. Forget it. Xiaohua hurriedly let go. Then, the green seal characters turned into tentacles and quickly dissipated. The dark green ribbons of light once again fell into the white light. The white light also swayed a few times before returning to normal. After pausing for a moment, Xiaohua transmitted a few words. Unfortunately, this cocoon was refined by the fast cherry grand sage. Xiaohua's transmission couldn't enter, so Xianwan inside naturally couldn't detect it. Dai hesitated for a moment and turned to look at Yuanya. Yuanya gave her a smile and said, "Don't worry, Dai. Master is waiting for Dong Shani. He is very careful and likes to go with the flow. If Dong Shani can help solve it, that's the best. Master won't have to take the risk. If Dong Shani can't solve it, Master will use other divine arts. In short, Master will definitely be able to save the Empress." Xiaohua looked at Yuanya curiously. Yuanya was right. Xiaohua didn't use many of his divine arts. It didn't mean that he couldn't solve it. The worst thing was that Xiaohua could send the complete soul formation into the space. Everything would be as easy as lifting a finger. While they were talking, Xiaohua suddenly raised his head slightly, looked out, and said with a smile, "How could it be her?" She came quickly. Dai and Yuanya hurriedly released their divine senses. Unfortunately, in the wind and snow, they didn't see any traces of cultivators. After the time it took to eat a meal, a probing divine sense descended from the sky at the location Xiaohua had previously explored. When it saw Xiaohua and the others clearly, it quietly withdrew. Then, a figure flitted across the red clouds and a slightly surprised voice fell along with the snowflakes. "Huh? Who are you? What are you doing here?" When the voice disappeared, a female cultivator wearing a rainbow-colored bird feather dress stepped on the red clouds and landed. This woman looked very beautiful. She had a goose egg-shaped face and a pair of eyes that could be happy or angry. The woman's gaze swept over Xiaohua and the others, then looked at the light of the soul formation again. Seeing that it wasn't Dong Shani, was a little surprised. She looked at Xiaohua and cupped her hands towards the female cultivator. "This one is Yuan Dai. May I know who you are?" "Yuan Dai." The female cultivator looked at Dai, then at Yuan Yen Xiaohua. What are you doing here? Who are you?" Yuanya asked with some displeasure. Like Xiaohua, he had already concealed his cultivation. How could this female cultivator see through it? "Huh, you don't even recognize me." The female cultivator laughed. "It seems that you are sword cultivators from Huan country? It seems that you are a very famous cultivator in the Cultivation 3 countries?" Xiaohua touched his nose and smiled. "May I ask what your name is?" "I am Fairy Yingjue from Xuanyan School." The female cultivator said haughtily, "How dare you trespass into the territory of the state of Xi without the consent of the state of Xi? Oh, so it is Fairy Yingjue." Xiaohua nodded. "I am Xiaohua. I have long heard of Fairy's name. Unfortunately, I have never had the chance to meet you. Now that I have met you, you are indeed worthy of your reputation." Xiaohua. Hearing Xiaohua call himself Fairy Yingjue frowned and asked curiously, "You are a Dao cultivator disciple?" "That's right." Xiaohua smiled. "I was Shang Huaming's disciple in the beginning. Later, Shang Huaming was killed by 3 nascent soul cultivators. I joined the Imperial Thunder sect. However, my luck was bad and I was expelled from the sect." Fairy Yingjue was shocked. "You are really Xiaohua? You are actually still alive?" "Of course." Xiaohua smiled sweetly and replied, "If I am not alive, who can avenge Shang Huaming's blood feud for my pitiful master? Damn it." Fairy Yingzhou cursed in a low voice. Her figure flashed and she suddenly pounced towards Xiaohua. At the same time, the tyrant spring bud that she had hidden in her hands suddenly shot out. At the tip of the slender and beautiful rod, a large flower bud was about to bloom. As the flower bud bloomed, the heaven and earth's spiritual qi in the surrounding sky surged over and gradually condensed into a silken form beside the flower bud. When the flower bud bloomed into a fresh flower, Fairy Yingzhou let out a thunderous shout. Qi, her hand seemed to be pulling a heavy object as she slowly waved it. Countless thin threads streaked through the air near the flower bud, bringing along even more heaven and earth spiritual qi in the surroundings and pierced towards Xiaohua. As these thin threads streaked through the air, they let out a piercing sound and tore apart the nearby void. The entire thin thread transformed into a large net, almost completely enveloping Xiaohua's body. Seeing Fairy Yingzhou make her move, a cold smile appeared on Xiaohua's face. He looked at the void shattering and the magic treasure condensing, yet he said in a lonely voice, "What a pity! Fairy Yingzhou was actually taken over by Dongshan. Even if I want to take revenge, I can't. I don't know if I should thank you or kill you." Speaking to hear, Xiaohua looked towards Yunya and said, "Make your move. However, let her live. Let's see how we can save the Empress." Shua. Just as Xiaohua was speaking, Fairy Yingzhuo's tyrant spring bud had already hit Xiaohua. However, just as Fairy Yingzhuo was dumbstruck, the heavy threads fell through the air, as if Xiaohua's figure was merely an illusion. However, the experienced and knowledgeable Dongshan Yi understood that this was a spatial divine ability. Xiaohua looked like he was in the same space as her, but in reality, long before the tyrant spring bud fell, Xiaohua had already escaped into another space. Seeing this, how could Dongshan Yi not know that Xiaohua's strength was too much stronger than hers? She didn't have time to be shocked. Black gas surged around her body and she transformed to escape. "Kill!" Yunya roared, holding the bone spear in his hand. He revealed his strength and stabbed towards Dongshan. Seeing the layers of demonic aura on the bone spear, waves of demonic dragon aura that could kill her 10,000 times, not only did it seal the demonic aura and magic power in her body, it even sealed the space of several hundred feet around her. Only then did Dongshan Yi truly realize the danger she was in. But seeing her cry out in fear, she once again took advantage of the situation and waved the tyrant's spring bud. Pu piu piu. Endless rumbling sounds came from the void, layer after layer of threads were extinguished by the demonic aura, the illusion of the flower was pierced by the demonic spear, and finally, with a loud bang, the tyrant's spring bud was pierced by the Yuanying's demonic spear. Amidst the rumbling sounds, a fist-sized hole pierced through the handle of the tyrant's spring bud, and several cracks also appeared near the hole. The demonic aura surged like a tidal wave in front of Dongshan Yi, and the tip of the demonic spear that could pierce through a mountain with just a slight movement was pressed between Dongshan Yi's eyebrows. Dongshan Yi naturally wouldn't give up without a fight. She narrowed her eyes, the demonic aura surged around her body, and she was about to resist again, but at this moment, shwa! Hundreds of holy flames soared into the sky, like a tsunami, shrouding the space of nearly 100 miles. In the flames, Dyer spread her wings and revealed her true form, her elegant neck slightly bent, and her head that was more beautiful than Empress Xianwan's proudly raised. The unique nobility of the Swan clan was inadvertently revealed between her delicate eyebrows. And now, there was an indescribable murderous aura in that nobility. The whistling of the light was like the anger that had accumulated in Dyer's heart for hundreds of years, and the aura that was comparable to a moon elite was even more vast than the sky. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, gift, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5079. How is this possible? Which elite of the heavenly fortune palace are you? Dongshan Yi was shocked. Facing Yuanya, she might not have been able to gauge Qing Yuanya's strength, but facing Dai, she clearly knew that her little bit of strength was not even comparable to a little wolf cub in front of Dai. She tactfully withdrew her resistance and cried out in shock. Why haven't I seen you before? Of course you've seen the moon elites from 700 years ago. Dai's body was like a crescent moon as she stood in the air. Her holy flames illuminated everything within a radius of several hundred kilometers, and the snowflakes that fell into the center of the flames turned into nothingness. Dai's voice was a little lazy, but also a little arrogant. She said coldly, "But what about the moon elites from 700 years ago? How could you have seen them all?" But Dongshan said one word and then closed his mouth. His eyes, already glowing green, looked at the soul formation in the distance and began to ponder. Dongshan said faintly, "If you want to live, quickly release the Empress from the formation." He. When Dongshan heard this, her heart settled. The demonic qi around her body slowly retracted, revealing Fairy Ingjua's body. She smiled and said, "Junior can naturally release Xian from inside, but Junior would like to ask Senior to agree to Junior's two small requests." "Speak," asked without hesitation. "It's very simple." Dongshan replied quickly, "Senior must first promise not to let Xian hurt Junior. Secondly, when Xian returns to the 10,000 demon realm, she will give Junior the Void Sea primordial water of Demon King Emosa." Damn it. Finally understood why Dongshan chased her from the 10,000 demon realm to the Dawn Rain continent. She cursed in her heart, "So it's for the Void Sea primordial water." However, hesitated and said, "The Void Sea primordial water belongs to Demon King Emosa. I can't guarantee that the Empress can get it from him, but I promise she won't hurt you." Of course the Empress can't hurt Junior now, but what about Senior and the others? Dongshan realized that her request was wrong and quickly corrected it. Glanced at Xiaohua, nodded and said, "Don't worry, we won't do anything." "All right." When Dongshan heard this, he was relieved. He smiled and said, "Senior, please wait a moment." After he finished speaking, Dongshan's body once again emitted black gas. Strands of dark green light also surged out from the black gas like spirit snakes. When the black gas turned into a black robe, it covered Dongshan's body. Dongshan let out a wolf howl. His body rapidly expanded. He abandoned Fairy Ingjua's human form and turned into a wolf. "Senior, please stand back a bit." Dongshan's voice was slightly hoarse. As he spoke, he flew to the front of the array. He looked at the soul array that Xiaohua pulled out of thin air. His dark green eyes looked at Xiaohua and Yuanya. Then, with a roar, the thousands of strands of green light around him turned into threads. It was like the light from a magic treasure from before that rushed towards the soul array. Wang. The green light was naturally formed by small green seal scripts. When these green seal scripts touched the soul array, the green light above the soul array was immediately attracted. It slowly rotated and fell towards Dongshan's position. Following the roar of the soul array, layers of strange halos began to emerge from the soul array's holy flames. They turned into rings and entered Dongshan's body. Sigh. Xiaohua saw this and sighed, "You really brought this upon yourself." After that, Xiaohua opened his mouth and a green seal script the size of a fist flew out. This green seal script flashed with a pure dark green color. It rushed between Dongshan and the soul array like a meteor. The green seal script turned into a strange screeching sound. A mysterious force was born from the void and instantly cut off the connection between Dongshan and the soul array. Even the green seal script's counterattack was like a river flowing backwards into Dongshan's body. Dongshan screamed and flew back. His body was covered in a bloody light. Large pieces of flesh fell from the black gas. There were also faint traces of green light entwining on the flesh. Why do you know the forbidden technique of my 10,000 demon realm? Dongshan stood in the air. The black gas on his body was dim, but the green light was strong. On his ferocious wolf head, he couldn't help but reveal an extremely shocked expression. Xiaohua would not answer his question. He only said coldly, "This old man gave you a chance to redeem yourself, but you don't know how to cherish it. You dare to use the spirit-changing technique in front of this old man. Do you think we are all idiots? Ha! Seeing that his plan was seen through, Dongshan raised his head and laughed. What's wrong? I'm already like this. What can you do to me? You can just kill me. I don't want to live anymore. Since the forbidden technique is called a forbidden technique, it is naturally not something an ordinary human or demon can bear. Xiaohua had already seen through Dongshan Yi's suffering. He said lightly, the green seal script is the sound of heaven and earth, the sound of ghosts and gods. You, an ordinary demon, dare to pry into the ghosts and gods of heaven and earth. Isn't it obvious that you will be cursed? You must have trapped Xian Wan because you want to possess her Feng clan's demon body. Are you preparing to struggle at death's door for a few more days? However, this old man will also tell you that even if you possess her body, you won't be able to live for long. The backlash of the forbidden technique is the soul, not the body. You have already possessed Injua Fairy, you must already know this flaw. You know that you can never escape this curse, right? That's right. Dongshan endured the double pain from his soul and body. He gritted his teeth and said, it is because I discovered this flaw after possessing Injua Fairy that I didn't force Xian Wan further. Otherwise, I would have already done it. If that's the case, Xiaohua smiled, you must have other uses for Xian Wan? Do you want to know? Dongshan looked at Xiaohua and realized something. He actually bargained. Xiaohua waved his hand, you don't need to act smart in front of this old man. If this old man wants to know, I just need to save Xian Wan from this soul array. Why ask you? Ah. Dongshan laughed even louder. Since you can do it, why don't you? You are afraid of harming Xian Wan's soul, right? Damn it. Dai was furious and shouted, how can you know the head elder's abilities? If it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid that my empress would misunderstand and think that you did it, he would have broken the array long ago. Empress? Dongshan suddenly woke up and looked at Dai in disbelief. You are actually called Empress Xian Wan? You are the little duck from back then? Ha. Laughed with grief and indignation. Yes, it is me. I am the little duck that was almost killed by you back then. Dongshan was stunned and whispered, how is that possible? This has only been 600 years, right? How can you become a moon elite? And you are not restricted by the laws of this realm? My upper race's opportunity, how can a wolf demon of a lower race know about it? Dai? Sneered. Dongshan was angry and said, so what if I am of a lower race? Are lower races destined to not surpass upper races? I am just a white swan trampled on by a toad, what is there to be proud of? If your heavenly fortune palace is so powerful, why would you give your saintess to Archfiend Emosa? Look at Archfiend Emosa, I would rather die than marry him. With that, Dongshan looked up to the sky and shouted, heavens, why are you so unfair? I spent so much effort to cultivate, gave up the easy way to enter the narrow door, gave up my wolf race's cultivation method, and cultivated a forbidden technique. I suffered so much in these years, why can't you look at me? I just want to borrow Archfiend Emosa's Void Sea primordial water to refine my demon body. I just want to borrow the Wind Clan's Heavenly Pure Feather to enter the Heavenly Feather sacred world to find the source of the forbidden technique. Why is it so difficult? Heavenly Pure Feather? Xiaohua frowned and looked at Dai thoughtfully. Dai faltered slightly before a joyful expression appeared on her face, and she also exclaimed in a low voice, Tian Jieyu? Yes, use Heavenly Pure Feather. How can I be so stupid? Then, shouted, Head Elder, disciple knows how to inform Empress. Heavenly Pure Feather? What is that? As Xiaohua spoke, a meaningful smile appeared on his face. Da was a bit embarrassed and whispered, Heavenly Pure Feather is the Wind Clan's sacred object that Disciple mentioned to Head Elder. It was also the object that Disciple hid in Disciple's body when she risked her life to send me out. Dongshan was stunned and shouted, how is that possible? Didn't she marry Archfiend Emosa long ago? She is no longer the Wind Clan's holy maiden, how can she still have Heavenly Pure Feather? What do you know? Dai, said proudly, My empress is as pure as jade. Even if she married into Emosa Palace, she is still a holy maiden. Naturally, she can still keep heavenly pure feather. That damn Xianwan. Dongshan Yi gritted her teeth and cursed. Then she mocked, poor toad. AI. Xiaohua heard and couldn't help but think of Archfiend Emosa. Although Archfiend Emosa's appearance was just passable and couldn't match Xianwan, he was really good to Xianwan, so he sighed and said, it should be the respectable Archfiend Emosa. The heard and also said with deep veneration, that's right, head elder is right. When Disciple was young, Disciple felt injustice towards Empress, but after thinking about it these years, Archfiend Emosa was really good to Empress. He built Qin School Palace for Empress and gave her the cocoon of the Rapid Cherry Sage, but without Empress's consent, he wouldn't even take a step into Qin School Palace. Moreover, because my Wind clan has been unable to choose the next holy maiden, Archfiend Emosa has never stayed in Qin School Palace. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, collect, reward, thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5080. What can't be obtained always feels precious. Xiao Hua nodded and said, and what can be obtained? Never know how to cherish. The human race is like this, the demon race is also the same. Junior understands. Dai deeply looked at Yuanya, who didn't seem to understand romance and only stared at Dongshan Yi to prevent her from escaping. Junior will not follow in Empress' footsteps. With that, Dai's right wing flashed and a holy feather of light flew out. The moment this feather of light appeared, it emitted an extremely pure aura. Countless swan-like rays of light shot out from this feather of light and rushed into the void. Headmaster, this is the pure sky feather. Forgive Disciple for concealing it earlier. Dai said somewhat embarrassedly and seemed to want to deliver the pure sky feather to Xiaohua. Xiaohua had already seen the pure sky feather in the space. He slightly smiled and waved his hand. This object is pure and holy, it doesn't have to go through this old man's hands. You can use your own technique to let Empress know. Thank you, Headmaster, for forgiving Disciple for concealing it. Lowering her proud head, the pure sky feather landed near the soul formation with a flap of her wings. Swoosh! Without waiting for the pure sky feather to get close, those centipede-like green lights flowing inside the soul formation immediately reacted and flew out of the light shadow and pounced towards the pure sky feather with bared fangs and brandished claws. The pure sky feather slightly trembled like a weak woman, the light flames retracted and actually seemed to be retreating. Sigh. Xiaohua didn't expect the pure sky feather to be so afraid of filthy things. He immediately thought of the timid and cautious Featherwind King he saw in the 10,000 demon realm. Thus, he sighed and raised his hand. Kachacha! 3 corpses in thunder exploded and instantly extinguished the green lights coming out of the soul formation. Once the filth in the space was gone, the pure sky feather spun again like it was dancing and fell towards the soul formation. In front of the pure sky feather, Xiaohua's 3 corpses in thunder didn't disperse but turned into a thunder golden armor and killed all the green lights coming out. Which thunder? Dongshan Yi saw the power of the 3 corpses in lightning and cried out in her heart. Her face was ashen. She clearly knew that her little taboo power was not even worthy of carrying the shoes of this human cultivator named Xiaohua. The pure heavenly feather landed gracefully on the soul formation like light dust brushing against one's face and a light mist dispersing. The pure heavenly feather landed gracefully on the soul formation. The moment the swan-like light touched the light of the pure heavenly feather, the entire pure heavenly feather froze. After the time it took to eat a meal, there was no change to the pure heavenly feather. Instead, the light of the pure heavenly feather continued to pour into the pure heavenly feather. Then, with a boom, the light of the pure heavenly feather exploded. Pure and holy light threads were drawn out like moonlight. At the same time, a whirlpool had appeared in the originally dark sky. The whirlpool tore apart the dark clouds and the full moon peeked out. Right at this moment, Xiaohua faintly smiled. The countless soul threads between his brows turned into countless tentacles that fell down and grabbed all of the green light in the soul formation at the same time. Then, she heard the sound of the earth shaking rumble. All of the green light was extracted. Dongshan Yi was once again dumbstruck. The great spirit switching formation that she had carefully arranged was easily broken by Xiaohua just like that. Swoosh! Under the moonlight, a pure white swan whose body was covered in dark green light spots and black spots appeared, as if it had just hatched from a light egg. That ostentatious and flamboyant pure white wings were so elegant, and that lazy neck of the swan seemed to see everything in the world as dust. An aura that made people feel pity for the swan turned into a cool breeze, and along with the moonlight, it turned the surrounding few miles into a young girl's dreamland. Nyang nyang! Dyer sobbed. She spread her wings and was about to rush into the light. Daya? Nyang Nyang's lazy and unhurried voice sounded. There is a vicious curse here. Don't be anxious. Come closer, Nyang Nyang, don't be anxious. Xiaohua's gentle voice sounded. This one is Xiaohua. This one will immediately help you remove the witchcraft curse. Oh, okay. Nyang Nyang's golden eyes moved slightly. It was unknown if she saw Xiaohua clearly. However, hearing his familiar voice, Nyang Nyang smiled and replied. Kachacha! Lightning struck, swoosh swoosh swoosh. Clear rain surged. The cleansing heaven purifying earth technique that hadn't been used in a long time was used. The lightning and rain controlled the space around Nyang Nyang. Seeing the lightning extinguish the dark green dots around Nyang Nyang's body and the rain wash away the black decay, a perfect and pure Xianwan was reborn in the light. Dongshan Yi's jealousy reached its peak. Finally, a rainbow several zhang in size appeared from the cleansing heaven purifying earth technique and fell into Xianwan's body. The 9 colors of light were like a feather coat that appeared on Xianwan's body. Then it slowly faded. Ha! Xianwan's surprised voice sounded. Xiaohua, your forbidden technique is actually this powerful? As Xianwan's voice fell, rumble. The spiritual exchange array collapsed bit by bit, and the surrounding space also collapsed inch by inch. However, what made Xianwan very puzzled was that these spatial forces that could tear apart her light feathers didn't even touch a single feather on her body. Xianwan looked at the collapsed formation with interest, and a pensive look appeared in his golden eyes. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the space returned to normal. Xianwan retracted his wings and returned to his human form. Nyang Nyang. Dyer also turned back into her human form. With tears on her face, she threw herself in front of Xianwan like a child who saw her mother. Xianwan smiled and opened her arms to embrace Dyer. She stroked Dyer's hair and said lovingly, Dyer, I haven't seen you for so long. You've grown up. Woo woo. Dyer cried. Yes, Nyang Nyang, I've grown up. I missed you so much. Silly child. Xianwan smiled gracefully. Haven't we met again? Xiaohua didn't step forward. He only looked up at the Nyang Nyang before. He only felt a sense of familiarity and respect. Now that he looked at her again, it was a shocking feeling. No wonder the heavenly blessing palace made her the saintess. No wonder Demon King Masa doted on her so much. No wonder the heartless great sage Minghua had feelings for her. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the bright moon in the sky witnessed Xianwan's escape. She pulled back the red clouds to cover her tracks and the dancing snowflakes fell again. Dyer got up from the Nyang Nyang's embrace and wiped the tears on her face. She whispered, Nyang Nyang, you were trapped by Dongshan. It was all thanks to Daoist Xiao. Otherwise, this servant wouldn't know how to save you, Xianwan nodded. She tidied up her transformed palace dress and bowed to Xiaohua. Xianwan thanks Daoist Xiao. Xiaohua naturally wouldn't let Xianwan bow. He raised his hand and smiled. Nyang Nyang's grace to this Xiao is like a mountain. This Xiao should repay Nyang Nyang. Nyang Nyang doesn't need to be so polite. Xianwan knew that Xiaohua's magic power was profound, but she still underestimated him. Under the bow, she truly felt Xiaohua's magic power as thick as the earth. She couldn't help but be shocked. She asked curiously, Daoist Xiao, why are you all so strong? Even Dyer? I'm afraid she's a star realm expert, right? Could it be that I've been suppressed for hundreds of thousands of years? Why do I feel like it's only been 1,000 years? Hee, nyang nyang, this servant has now stepped on the edge of the moon realm. Daya smiled as if she was showing off something fun to her loved ones. Nyang nyang, everyone has their own opportunities. There's no need to talk about this. Xiaohua said, you remember correctly. It should be 600 or 700 years. Oh. Xianhuan nodded. She didn't ask any more questions and smiled. Then what about Xiao Huang? Xiao Huang is cultivating in the Kunlun paradise. It's not convenient for him to come out and see Nyang Yang. Xiaohua didn't hide anything and replied, however, although his strength is not comparable to Dyer's now, Dyer will not be able to reach him in the future. Xianhuan wasn't surprised. She nodded and said, if I'm not wrong, he should be the holy beast Di Ting, right? And it should be. Xiaohua nodded. But he still has a long way to go. He has only taken a few steps now. Di Ting? Dong Shanyi's brain was really not enough. She really didn't know who to provoke, but she had to provoke Xianhuan. Who's this? Xianhuan naturally saw Yuanya long ago. Yuanya's fierce demonic energy made Xianhuan uncomfortable, so she frowned. Dyer saw Xianhuan frown and knew something was wrong. She hurriedly lowered her head and said, Nyang Nyang, his name is Yuanya. He is this servant's, damn it. Xiaohua also knew something was wrong. He cursed in a low voice, this Xiao should let Yuanya save Xianhuan. Xianhuan nodded slightly and said, I understand. Hee. Xiaohua smiled awkwardly and said to Yuanya, yeah, come and greet Nyang Yang. You must have heard about it from Dyer. Yes, master. Yuanya obeyed Xiaohua's words and flew over and bowed to Xianhuan. Seeing this, Xiaohua said to Xianhuan, Nyang Yang, this is this Xiao's disciple. His name is Yuanya. Although he has a demonic spear and cultivates demonic arts, he is a true man. His heart is magnanimous and his actions are just and honorable. Xianhuan smiled and waved her hand. Yuanya's strength is probably much higher than this queen's. This queen does not dare to accept such a bow. There is no need. Saying this, Xianhuan habitually urged her magic power to stop Yuanya. Unfortunately, Yuanya only had Xiaohua in his eyes and ignored Xianhuan's attempt to stop him. He still bowed and ignored Xianhuan's magic power. Xianhuan frowned and wanted to urge the power of the stars and moon, but Yuanya had already lowered his head. She had no choice but to turn her body slightly to show that she was ignoring him. Yuanya got up. Seeing Xianhuan like this, he also frowned and a trace of anger appeared in his heart. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. While muttering in his heart that no one was perfect, he waved his hand and motioned for Yuanya to withdraw first. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, and Chapter 5081. Thus, Xianhuan watched Yuanya leave and said to Dai, I've already told you what the Wind Clan's holy maiden needs to do. All the rules are engraved in the Heavenly Fortune Palace. You've been studying the pure heavenly feather for many years, so you should know better, right? Self-cleanliness is the most important rule. Yes, Empress. The was a little confused, but she suddenly felt uneasy. This servant knows what you're talking about, but what does it have to do with this servant? Empress is my Heavenly Fortune Palace's holy maiden. I've already married into the Masa Palace. The reason I still keep the pure heavenly feather is because the Heavenly Fortune Palace hasn't found a suitable holy maiden. Xianhuan said calmly, now, I've been infected by the witchcraft curse and am no longer pure. Moreover, I originally wanted you to bring the pure heavenly feather to the 10,000 demon world, but it has accompanied you for nearly 1,000 years. You've already been recognized by the pure heavenly feather, so there's no need for the Heavenly Fortune Palace to find another holy maiden. Your strength is enough to be my Heavenly Fortune Palace's holy maiden. Empress. Dai, hurriedly knelt. Dai, how can I be a holy maiden? Are you a member of my Wind Clan? Xianhuan asked. Dai, answered without any hesitation. Since that's the case, you should know how important the Holy Maiden is to my Wind Clan. You should be brave enough to bear the responsibility. Xian Wan pointed at the pure heavenly feather. Sure enough, the pure heavenly feather ignored Xian Wan's aura and floated to Dai Er's head. Xian Wan smiled and said, Look, the pure heavenly feather has recognized you as its holy maiden. It's not nonsense. Dai knelt in the air with mixed feelings. She really didn't expect that the holy maiden she had painstakingly rescued would have such an unforeseen event. Dai couldn't help turning to look at Yuan Ya. Xiaohua opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but Dai wasn't a Fortune Gate disciple, and she was indeed a Wind Clan's demon spirit. He didn't have the right to interfere with the Holy Maiden's appearance, right? Not to mention that the pure heavenly feather had already recognized Dai. Dai retracted her gaze and whispered, "You are already my Wind Clan saintess, there is no need to call yourself a servant." Xian Wan stopped Dai from arguing and smiled. "From now on, you can also be called Xie Dai." "I wouldn't dare." Dai bit her lips and said in a low voice, "Dai already has a name." "Oh." Xie Wei frowned. "What's your name?" "Yuan Dai." Dai seemed to have steeled her heart. Her voice was still rather loud, which made Xie Wei unhappy. "Yuan Dai." Xian Wan's eyes glowed with a golden light, but it quickly disappeared. He then said, "The name of the Wind Clan saintess cannot be blasphemed. Only the Palace Lord of the Heavenly Fortune Palace can confirm this. Let's talk about this later." "Yes, Empress." Dai lowered her head, and Ren Tianjie landed on her head. "Empress." Xiao Hua at the side couldn't help but say, "The so-called purity still focuses on the state of mind, not the appearance and body." Xiao Hua's words were not without sarcasm, but unfortunately, Xian Wan ignored him. She watched the pure heavenly feather merge into Dai's body, then smiled and turned to Xiao Hua. "Spiritual Master Xiao, this Empress thanks you again. However, this Empress still has to rush back to the 10,000 Demon Realm and safely send the new Saintess back to the Heavenly Fortune Palace. This great kindness can be thanked later." "No need." Xiao Hua helplessly waved his hand and said, "Our karma has already been settled, there is no need to say thanks." "Good, in that case, this Empress will take her leave." Xian Wan pulled Dai and let her get up and fly away. "How should we deal with the Wolf Clan?" Xiao Hua pointed at Dongshan Yi and asked. Xian Wan glanced at Dongshan Yi as if she had seen a speck of dust and said lightly, "Since it was captured by Spiritual Master Xiao, it will naturally be handled by Spiritual Master Xiao. How Spiritual Master Xiao deals with it is Spiritual Master Xiao's business. It has nothing to do with this Empress." After saying that, Xian Wan pulled Dai and urged her body to fly away. "Damn it." Seeing Xian Wan and Dai leave, Xiao Hua couldn't help but curse in a low voice. Lousy guessed the process, but Lousy never would have guessed this ending. Did you see?" Dongshan Yi sneered. "This is Xian Wan, this is the Wind Clan's holy maiden. She looks holy, but in reality she is a *****. She was forced by Heavenly Blessing Palace to marry Demon King Imosa. Do you know what Demon King Imosa's true form is? A toad, huh? Don't you humans have a saying called a toad wants to eat swan meat? That toad wants to eat swan meat. Oh, that's not right, so far the toad hasn't eaten swan meat. This is nothing in her heart, she is still thinking. Pa." Not waiting for Dongshan Yi to finish, Xiao Hua slapped Dongshan Yi's face and interrupted him, coldly saying, "You are wrong. In your opinion, Xian Wan is doing shady business, but in this Xiao's opinion, she is worthy of respect. This Xiao clearly feels that she has mishandled Dai, but this Xiao knows that this is what she should do as a holy maiden. Don't you think that she has the strength to pursue her own happiness, but for the Heavenly Blessing Palace, she endured the humiliation of marrying a toad? Don't you think that she could have flown away with her lover, but she still kept her chastity, living alone in Emosa Palace? Don't look at anything from your own point of view." You're right, but what about your disciple?" Dongshan Yi looked at Yuan Ya with schadenfreude. he's probably going to be alone for the rest of his life, isn't he? Hee hee. Xiao Hua sneered. Even an Origin World's Demon King Mo Sa can make Heavenly Blessing Palace's Featherwind King marry a holy maiden. Can't my Fortune Gate's personal disciple kill his way to the Heavenly Blessing Palace? Xiao Hua then turned to Yuan Ya. Disciple is here. Yuan Ya bowed. Master's karma with Holy Maiden has been settled. Xiao Hua instructed. My Fortune Gate has nothing to do with the Heavenly Blessing Palace. As you can see, Dai has already acknowledged Yuan Dai, and she has you in her heart. You shouldn't let her down. You can do whatever you want, even if you kill your way to the Heavenly Blessing Palace with the Devil Spear. Master will support you. Also, don't worry, no matter what you do, my Fortune Gate will support you. What Heavenly Blessing Palace? What Wind Clan? Even if it's the Origin World, you don't have to be afraid. Go to the 10,000 Demon World and turn it upside down. Yes, Master. Yuan Ya smiled. Although Dai didn't send me a message, Disciple already understood the look in her eyes. After she sends Xian Wan back to the 10,000 Demon World and returns the pure Sky Feather to the Wind Clan, Junior will kill his way to the Sky Rain World with the Bone Spear. Marry Dai? Very good. The 10,000 Demon World's demon race killed my Profound Alliance's cultivators. It's time for them to taste the power of the human race. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and said indifferently, Go give the Swift Cherry Grand Sage a surprise. Xiao Hua then looked at Dongshan Yi and said, Since Xian Wan didn't kill you, this old man naturally won't kill you. However, this old man won't let you go. After all, you took over Fairy Ingjua's body, so you should bear the karma of Fairy Ingjua. Let this old man ask you, which nascent soul realm cultivators killed Shang Huaming? When Zhang Qingxiao came back to life, she once said that she killed Shang Huaming's nascent soul, but his cultivation was shallow at that time, so he couldn't see who it was. Zhang Qingxiao's words were all guesses, and Zhang Qingxiao naturally sent a disciple to investigate Long Dan. Xiao Hua also saw Long Dan, but he couldn't confirm who it was. Of course, there were many nascent soul realm cultivators in the three countries, but those who knew about the existence of Little White Dragon were definitely the nascent soul realm cultivators in the country of Shi. Fairy Ingjua was the sect master of Xuanyan School, so she must be the main suspect in Zhang Qingxiao's suspicion. Therefore, when Xiao Hua saw Fairy Ingjua appear, he immediately probed. At this time, Fairy Ingjua was originally Dongshan Yi's body, so most of Fairy Ingjua's memories were clear, so Xiao Hua immediately found out the truth. Dongshan Yi didn't hide anything. She thought for a moment and said, Since you already know some, then I might as well tell you everything. Anyway, I don't want to live anymore. The others can forget about being happy. Dongshan Yi told him everything she knew, including everything that happened at Shang Huaming's place that night. Hearing that 3 nascent soul realm cultivators killed Little White Dragon, who had crossed the Thunder Tribulation, and casually killed Xiao Yuehong, who was only in the Foundation Establishment realm, Gong Mingwei, and Zhang Qingxiao, who were in the Qi Refining realm, he couldn't help but clench his teeth. These nascent soul realm cultivators really didn't treat low-level cultivators as human beings. After saying that, Dongshan Yi looked at Xiao Hua and said, That's how it is. I have nothing to hide. Quickly do it. Now I've been suffering from the backlash of this forbidden technique day and night. Elder Wu's body and soul can't bear it. Xiao Hua listened and pinched his chin, thinking secretly. Dongshan Yi said it clearly. After killing Shang Huaming and the other 2 cultivators and destroying Little White Dragon's body, they didn't catch up with Little White Dragon's soul. The 3 of them divided Little White Dragon's body and inner core, and then returned to their respective sections. Fairy Ingjua had been stuck in the late nascent soul realm for a long time and couldn't break through the bottleneck to enter the spirit-severing realm. Sun Yunzi's Python Dragon Core couldn't be refined for a long time, so Fairy Ingjua could only ask Dongshan Yi for help. Just as Xiao Hua thought, although the human cultivators of the Xian Alliance were killed by the demon race of the 10,000 Demon Realm, their cultivation methods were leaked out. Especially some low-level demon spirits, they didn't have their own cultivation methods, so they naturally used the cultivation methods of the human race to cultivate. Moreover, they modified it according to the differences of each demon race. Coincidentally, In order to break through in the early years, Dongshan Yi had studied the 9-transformation golden core cultivation method of the Xian Alliance. Now that he saw Fairy Yingzhua asking for advice, he took the opportunity to pass the cultivation method to Fairy Yingzhua. Of course, this cultivation method was mixed with some hidden tricks that Fairy Yingzhua couldn't detect. Fairy Yingzhua was naturally ecstatic when she received the cultivation method. At first, she had some doubts, but after a little bit of cultivation she gained a lot, so she threw away her vigilance and began to cultivate at ease. But Fairy Yingzhua didn't know that she was stepping into the trap that Dongshan Yi had set for her step by step. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward. Thank you for all forms of support.